Hello and welcome back, everyone, to Inside the Dojo on Real Experiences. I'm your host, Jesse Segal, and today we are diving into the invisible architecture that powers every great animation and real-time cinematic experience. I'm talking about rigging. Our guest today is someone who doesn't just rig for function, he rigs for performance, fluidity, and real-time precision. Barrenechea-Azueta is a seasoned senior 3D artist, a virtual production filmmaker, and a creative force with more than 15 years of experience across advertising, marketing, tech, and immersive storytelling. From Reebok and the North Face to cutting-edge work in Unreal Engine, Jesse has built a career designing smart systems that bring characters, vehicles, and props to life. Today, Jesse is pulling back the curtain on control rigs inside Unreal Engine, and not just to show how it works, but to reveal how it unlocks collaboration, speeds up pipelines, and enables animators and directors to bring emotion and intention to every move, from FK, IK logic, to modular rig systems and procedural vision. Jesse is going to take us inside the rig today. And by the end of the session, you'll never see your scene the same way again. Jesse is a friend, a colleague, and highly respected artist in the industry. Please join me in welcoming the brilliant and endlessly innovative Barrenechea-Azueta to Inside the Dojo. Jesse.
Hey, everyone. Glad to see everybody here. Jesse, thank you so much for having me. This is a first for me. So I'm a little nervous, but I'm super excited to share some of the stuff that I've encountered over my career. Today, we're going to go through what the world of rigging. Why are we going to do it? Why is it important? It's probably, I want to say, one of the most technical aspects of 3D, but it does require a lot of artistic precision because you have to think like an artist and an animator when you're building these systems. So before I get started, I kind of just want to show you a little montage of some projects that I've done. So that way you can kind of just sort of see a little bit of why rigs are important.
Absolutely. Hey, thank you so much for joining us. You're a rock star, and you're going to be awesome. I can't wait to put all that I know aside and learn from you today. So,
no, thank you so much, Jesse. Yeah, and just to touch on that, Jesse is another stud here. You know, a lot of knowledge. If you guys haven't seen his website, Virtual Production Dojo, make sure there's a lot of good content on there. There's a lot of good speakers. Highly recommended. So, on that note, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to share that little montage with you. See, and
What
Yeah.
an amazing show reel.
Thank you, thank you. That's just a combination of just some projects I've worked on. Everything that you've seen there, I rigged it. Some of the things I modeled in there, so it's and made materials. So it's just a combination of skill sets. But this is probably one of the most in-demand skill sets is rigging, because not a lot of people want to do it, but it's a great thing. If you can really go deep, do a deep dive into rigging, there's a lot of opportunities for you there. I'm going to go ahead and let me move into this. Share my screen here. Yeah.
Of course, Jesse, we've got our dear friend Nikhil here as well to support you. And I absolutely agree with what Nikhil just mentioned about the hoverback shot. Have fond memories of when all of us were in the Epic Animation Fellowship. And the hoverbike was an absolute showstopper.
Yeah, there was a lot of good content that came out of there. I was just super happy I got to animate something really cool, and I learned of a bunch of things in that fellowship. So like Jesse said, we were lucky enough to attend the Unreal Fellowships. I did the animation with Jesse and Nikhil, and I also did the world building one. And that was a really intensive course. And if you ever get a chance to definitely apply for it, I'll tell you right now, I didn't think I had a shot in getting in there, and I applied and I got in. So don't ever let something like that stop you. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about rigging, right? Especially inside of Unreal Engine, we're going to talk about modular rigging and control rig. But before we do that, I kind of want to give an overview for anybody that's not familiar with rigging. We're going to go and take a little bit of a deep dive into some basics. And then we're going to gradually progress into more and more advanced topics. So there's going to be something for everybody here. Okay, so this is a little bit about myself. Jesse Barrenechea-Azueta. I started my company last year called the XR Mill. And something that I've always learned, I'm based down in South Florida. I've worked on a variety of projects, VR, AR, motion capture, product shoots. Coming from the advertising world, we had a lot of different types of projects. So there was a lot of different skill sets and hats that I had to wear. So, and the industry is rapidly changing, especially now with the implementation of AI. You have to kind of refine your skill sets and stay on top of this ever-changing industry. I've worked with some top brands like Reebok, North Face, Timberland, Vans, and Lexus. And a little bit about me, I love cinematic shots. I love little details because those little details are what really ground stories. So some of the topics that we're going to cover today, rigging 101. This is our outline for today. We're going to talk about why and why and what's the reasoning behind rigging. We're going to talk about the relationship between the rigger and the animator. We're going to discuss understanding FK versus IK and what those are and when to use them. Modular and control rig inside of Unreal Engine. What is it? How does it work? DCC rigs versus Unreal rigs. So anybody not familiar with the term DCC, digital content creation programs, that refers to like Maya, Blender, Cinema 4D. You can do rigging inside of those programs, and that will discuss basically why do it. Why do you want to sometimes do it there as opposed to Unreal, and why do you want to do it in Unreal as opposed to those programs? Then we're going to touch on a challenge scenario. I'll leave that as a surprise when we get there. So it's something very simple, but it's very common, especially when you use Unreal Engine. We're going to then move into live rigging, where we will rig a few things. We're going to rig a prop, a vehicle, and a modular character, and then we're going to go and take a deep dive into a node based character where we set up procedural workflows for that. And then we'll wrap up with an AI rigging demo. I just want to kind of show you AI, what it, you know, what are the programs, Mesh AI, I'll have something like that available, so we can kind of do a little rig there together just to kind of see what we get. And then we'll follow it up with any Q&A. Okay, so rigging 101. What is it and why is it done? So 3D rigging is the process of creating a digital skeleton and a control system for a 3D model so it can move and pose like a real character. It's what allows animators to bring static models to life, building kind of like building the puppetry behind the performance, right? So as you can see in the image there, I'm posing that character, but that's what's underneath the hood, those bones, right? The bones and the joints there in gray in the middle. That's kind of what's allowing you to give that expression to the character. So some terms that we're going to constantly hear is bones, joints, controls, and blend shapes or morph targets. You'll hear those terms. Rigging is a very technical process and it's extremely important in the animation pipeline. It's the backbone of your animation. So here's an example of a typical joint chain that you'll see, right? You'll have your little spheres are representing the joints. Those pyramid cones are representing the actual bone, and then those curves, those circular curves that you see, the circle lines, those are the controls. So that's typically a basic joint that you'll encounter. So whether it's film, games, or animation, emotion is at the heart of every memorable character, right? Because everybody wants to tell a good story. And if you have a really good rig and you have a really good animator, that's going to be a good combination for telling a good story. Expressive characters evoke emotion, right? If anybody here has seen a Pixar film, I know everybody's been touched and felt something, especially those early films like Toy Story, The Bug's Life. There's an emotion there, right? Those characters are expressive. So the emotion begins with the rig. So like I said before, rigs are the backbone of a performance. A talented animator and a good rigger is a great recipe for success. Another thing is you want to kind of have some good habits too as a rigger, right? So you want to have good hierarchy, proper naming conventions. Those are good signs of a rigger, of a good rigger. And you have to understand your project, right? So not every rig is going to make sense for every project. So simple projects may just need a simple rig. You know, you might have a mug with a simple control, and that could be a rig itself. Or you know, you might need something like very complex, like an octopus or something. It's going to have a lot of joints. It's going to have a lot of, you know, IK movement. And the rig, you know, it should meet the animator's creative and technical needs, right? That's going to be super important. So the collaboration, the relationship between the animator and the rigger, right? A good rigger will always communicate with their animator. It's key. Talk with your animator early and often, right? Understand their vision. You're going to want to always ask questions, right? You want to ask the right questions. What should the character do? What should it not do? What's the story? What are the movements here? What's the personality of this character? Is he going to be very squashy and stretchy, or is he going to be very realistic looking and not kind of have those crazy movements? Is he going to be really expressive? Does he have large eyes, small eyes? You know, like, you have to take all that into account. Then you always want to establish a relationship and build a working relationship with your animator. Pick their brain. You know, those, when you have a really good relationship with your animator, you'll get to also feel their style, and you'll know what they like and what they don't like, and align your rig with their workflow. And last but not least, always seek feedback from your animator, and do that in stages, right? When you do something, you don't have to finish the rig completely to get the opinion. Earlier the better, because it's gonna help you as you refine your rig. They'll say, hey, this control for me was a little ambiguous. Make it a little bit more so I can figure this out on my own. Because at the end of the day, you're going to hand this rig off to somebody that has no idea what you did. They're not familiar with your work, and it has to be self-explanatory, almost like a manual that you can just follow. and they know where to go, right? They should feel natural to use, and you know, you should always, like I said, get feedback from your animator. So before I do that, I want to kind of touch on that notion of good hierarchy, good implementation. So I want to show you this really quick. I did this rig in Maya, and I just kind of want to show you what a good hierarchy should look like. Hopefully it'll load, because the scene, the robot is a little heavy in geometry. So we're going to go ahead and, so this right here is the entire, let me see if I can everybody see that a little bit?
Jesse, you might have to switch the screen.
Oh, let me stop presenting. Let me see if I can. Okay, thank you. Can you guys see that? Okay, so this is a good sign of a clean, organized hierarchy, right? So all this that you see right here, this is very easily identifiable. And the way that this is written, right, you want to kind of have everything is properly named, so it's not ambiguous. So it's like some people, like I've seen some riggers where they'll say joint 1, 2, and 3, but that doesn't really tell me where on the skeleton that is. So if you properly name this, right, this is a biped, so I know that I have fingers, I have arms, so I'm going to use terms like, you know, right hand ring finger, right? Right hand ring 1, right hand ring 2, right hand ring 3, those kind of things. So they're easily identifiable. And you can go in here and pretty much find what you need. It's super clean, super organized, and easy to follow. And if something does like not work, you can easily find things too to troubleshoot. So this is just an example that I wanted to kind of show of a clean hierarchy with a rig. So let me go back to the presentation here. Okay, so FK versus IK, right? If anybody's never heard of that term, right? You see, nobody's heard of that term. It's forward kinematics, FK. This is a method of animating where you rotate each joint one by one, starting from the top of the hierarchy. Like in this example, we have a shoulder to the elbow to the hand, right? That's the order. It goes from top down, right? And then each movement affects the joint below it. So just like, you know, if you move your arm, you know, you do this, my shoulder's controlled in my elbow and my hand. And if you notice, you're creating a lot of arc motions, right? So this is good for like swinging and things like that. Inverse kinematics, right? IK, it's a little different, right? It's, instead of being a top down, it's bottom up, right? So the wrist is pretty much controlling everything, right? So it's a method of animation where you move the end limb like a hand or a foot, and the rest of the joints like elbow or knee automatically adjust to follow. And if you notice, it's very linear. The way that it moves in a line, right? Even though you can move it up and down, like you'll see when we go into the actual control rig, when you select an IK control, you'll usually get the translate locator, and when you do an FK, you usually get the rotation locator. So that's kind of where you'll see the difference. And when to use each, right? So FK is intuitive for posing and great for creating arcs and smooth motion. Good for things like swinging arms and tails. IK is useful for tasks like making a character's hands stay planted on a table, or keeping the feet firmly on the ground, right? So I'm gonna show you a live example of this. So let me jump on that really quick. Okay, can you guys see this? All right. So here we have an example of FK versus IK, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna make this full screen. So what I meant by a linear motion is right now to animate this, if you were to do this with FK, right, which means the rotation, right, you can see the controls are a little bit different, right? We have these cubes on the wrists for IK, and on FK we have these circles, right? So imagine you want to animate this. If you were to use FK, this would be a little bit of a task. But with IK, I can simply go ahead and animate this up and down. And same thing with the feet, right? So if I wanted to just grab his feet, I can go ahead and you see how the feet are driving the knees. Whereas in this example, if we go ahead and we select this and I do the rotations, right? The elbows are controlling the hand joints, right? And you're getting this arc-like motion. So here, we'll see if we can see this a little bit better. So yeah, you have this arc-like motion. And that's kind of the difference between the two, right? So the hands will be planted for IK, and then, FK, you'll want to do, like, if you're, let's say you're simulating somebody having a drink of water or something, that'd be great for FK. If you want somebody to reach for the actual glass of water, IK would be a good choice for that. So I just kind of wanted to show the difference between the two. So let's go back to this. All right. Yeah. Sorry. Second. All right. So our next topic is modular and control rig, right? What is that? Modular control rig is Unreal's node-based rigging system inside the Unreal Engine, right? Modular control rig is almost like I was talking to Jesse and I told him that for me, the way that I equate it is modular control rig and control rig is kind of like what blueprints are to C++. Blueprints has nodes and logic, but under the hood is C++. Modular rig is the same thing. It's almost like that's your framework with pre-made modules, but underneath the hood is control rig. So control rig is, like I said, Unreal Engine's tool for animating characters directly inside of the engine. And you can build and customize things using its node-based editor. Modular rigging, control rig, is built with using pre-made components called modules, and each represent either a body part, like an arm, a leg, or a spine. They also have stuff for vehicles in there. You can do bipeds, quadrupeds in there. And these modules automatically generate the controls and can be connected to form a full rig. And both will work nicely in Sequencer. Let's go to the next thing. Okay, so what are the benefits of modular and control rig? Faster rig creation. So you can use a lot of these modules can apply to different types of rigs. So it's very fast. You're not having to remake new controls or new, or new skeletons. If they share something similar, you can kind of go ahead and create something pretty quick. Flexibility and customization, so you can mix and match modules based on character needs. Yeah, you can easily swap out parts without having to redo the whole rig. And this is a big one: real-time performance, right? So you can go, the way that you would normally do it in a traditional like DCC and Maya, you'll rig everything first, you'll kind of test it out, then you'll bring it into production, and then you'll animate. But somebody might encounter an issue. You got to go back to the rig, fix it, and send it back. Here, because everything's node-based, you can easily debug things and turn things on and off to see where your problem is. And with a couple nodes, you can fix that problem, and then everything will kind of get integrated back into the pipeline without having to go back and recreate stuff. It's also artist-friendly. So the visual nodes, if anybody that, if you've done blueprints in the past, it's no different. It's very easy to understand. I'm the last person, I would say, that's a technical person, and I was able to figure this out. So if I can do it, you can do it. Clear structure makes everything easier to understand. And it's seamless integration with Sequencer because it's Unreal Engine's tool. It integrates very seamlessly with Sequencer. And if anybody that's not familiar with Sequencer, that's pretty much Unreal's animation tool, animation editor there, tool where you can kind of go and animate in real time there, and you can go ahead and do a bunch of really cool things with control rig. And it supports collaboration, right? Standardized modules make it easier for teams to work together. You can share and reuse rigs across characters and projects, right? So that's the benefits of control rig. So now we get to the topic of DCCs versus Unreal. What are some of the benefits, though, to doing it in a DCC, right? And what's that process look like? So normally, what you would do in something like Maya or Blender, you'll create rigs, right? You'll bind your skin to the mesh to the skeleton. You'll create, in some cases, custom scripts for automation. And then you'll have to export whatever you made from there into Unreal and hope that nothing breaks. But why still do that, right? Why still do it in a DCC? Well, the tool sets are just more powerful, right? They've been around a lot longer, right? They're more mature, right? Things like blend shapes, muscles, corrective shapes, you're going to have a lot better control in something like Maya or Blender or 3ds Max. And a lot of these programs are embedded in pipelines across VFX industry. And you have extensive plugins for these programs, and you have internal scripting ecosystems like Mel scripting and Python. Some of the challenges of using the DCCs are, of course, it requires the frequent exporting and importing back and forth between Unreal and the DCC of choice. It's definitely slower in terms of iteration changes and things like that. It's not as control rig where it's real time. And also to rigs in these programs, they're very linear, right? Whereas when you go into into Unreal, it's not linear. You can start and you can you don't have to go in a certain type of order, a linear workflow there. And then breaks can happen during import, right? And this is why, again, I say naming convention, hierarchy, bones, all that stuff is very important. All right, now the benefits of okay, so now this is the process of doing it inside of Unreal, right? You want to build control rigs directly in engine using a visual node system, right? No need for round tripping. You're doing everything inside of the engine, right? Modular rigging is fast, so you can whip up a rig in a matter of minutes, as long as your structure's fine. You get real-time feedback and animation in context. So that's super powerful. Think about that. Whenever you would animate in something else, you would have to animate it, render it, see it. But because we're using Unreal, you're almost seeing everything almost final pixel. And you can, if you say, hey, you know what, I don't like the way that elbow looks right there, you don't have to go back, fix it, re-render it to see the motion. You can do that in real time inside of Sequencer. It's great for real-time gameplay as well. So control rig is great for that. Advantages, again, like I said, real-time feedback. It's great for virtual production, previs, and live animation. It's very artist-friendly. So you don't really have to be a programmer to figure this stuff out. It's very artist-friendly. And it's very ideal for quick, like if you want to do something really quick and rough, you can kind of sort of see, okay, this is great. Maybe you can see your mesh is not deforming correctly. You might have to go back to the model, add some more resolution or something like that, or fix the topology. Because that's going to be another big part of rigging is your rigs will deform your mesh, and if your mesh isn't good to begin with, that'll give you some issues. So what are the challenges of using control rig? It's still maturing. It lacks a little bit in advanced deformation tools, but it's getting there. Like the team at Epic is working overtime to bring this because they understood that animators are, especially creators for Fortnite, they want to get in there, animate something, build something really cool. So they don't want these very technical hurdles for people. Their skinning tools are a little limited, but again, they're getting there. And like more complex systems might require a little bit of blueprints or C++ knowledge. So if you're not familiar with those, that's going to definitely be required for something more complex. And it's a little bit less feature rich for high end and film VFX rigging. So if you go into something, like I said, if you go into something like Maya, they have a dedicated tool system there. You can really get in the weeds there, but that's what it was originally for. But not to worry, it's coming. The team is working overtime at Epic, and they're definitely going to do it. All right, so challenge scenario, right? This is where we're going to kind of jump into the engine now. So adding a root bone. This has been a very common problem with people, right? So that people have encountered, right? You'll download something from TurboSquid. You're like, oh man, this character looks awesome. Or you go to Mixamo, and you'll find out that they don't have a root bone. And if anybody here is very savvy with Unreal, you know having a root bone is important, right? Especially if you are using some animation packs that use root animation. This is going to give you a little bit of an issue. So let me jump into the engine. I'm going to open up that scene. Bear with me. Share my screen. Else. All right. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep. Perfect.
All right. So what I'm going to basically show you right now is the character on the left has a root bone. The character on the right, the alien looking guy, he doesn't have a root bone. And you're going to see, you'll see the difference. So as you can see, the one on the left is very smooth, but the one on the right looks like he's having a little bit of trouble walking, right? So you see a little bit of jitterish. So that's what happens when you don't have a root bone. So how do we fix this, right? So let's actually jump into, let's go to this character here. So
Unless we put a hoverboard under him.
unless you put a what? Okay, so as you can see, right, this is our alien friend, right? Take me to your leader, right? So you can see there is no root bone. And this is going to be our little gateway into the rigging tools inside of Unreal Engine. So I am using, believe it or not, I'm using 5.6. But I think the skeletal mesh editor is available, what, 5.4, I believe. I could be wrong on that. But you want to make sure that you have this plugin. So you go to your plugins, you type in skeletal mesh editing tools. Make sure that that's checked on. You'll also probably want to turn on your animator kit. Just turn that on. If it's not on, make sure that that's on. Restart your project, and then you'll have those tools available. All right. So now, what I'm going to do is, so you can see right over here, you have hips, right, and then we go into our spine, right. And real quick, to see the bones here, you want to go to you hit this little eyeball in 5.6. You go to bones, and you'll select all hierarchy, and that'll show you your bones. Another thing too that I like to do is if I want to see it, because this character is kind of busy, you can change your mode to lighting only, and that will help you kind of sort of see your bones, right? So I'll do that. So what we want to do is we want to go to this guy right here, skeleton, and edit skeleton, right? So if I just go and I hit add, right, and I click anywhere, actually we'll just add and click. So we want to add. Oops. All right. We don't want that. We want it to add in here and add a bone. Just hit. Nope. Come on. Come on. Add. Let's try that again. Add a bone. Click on here. Why is it not clicking for me? Yeah, we don't want to do that. So give me 1 second. Our first hiccup. Yay. See if I can should do that when I hit edit skeleton. It should add it there. Skeleton. Okay, there we go. So now what I want to do is we named it. Okay, we got it there. We're going to name it root, right? And then we're going to close this. And all you got to do is pretty much drag your hips into your root. Now you got a root bone. Easy. You'll accept. And then what you're going to do is you're going to have two options here, right? You're going to hit either have new or merge. You want to merge. So you're going to hit merge, commit. All right. And now we got our root bone. So now we'll go out of here and we'll close this. And now what we want to do is, let's see what happens now. Does he actually get rid of him there? Let's see. Him, and then throw him now in. Right? Let's see, get rid of him. Now, should see him in here. We'll find him in the outliner here. We got to drag him into here. Right? Then we'll do an animation. Let's do, nope. Walk forward as I want. Let's see. Does that happen? Nope. You know what might be the issue is I have, let's see, okay, active. It might be that there's a rotation on the bone, which, yeah, it's not, for some reason it's not playing. Take this real quick. Delete him off out of here.
And that's the thing with the Unreal Engine, especially with the newer versions. A lot of these tools, like the animation toolkit and modular control rigs and skeletal editor, these are highly experimental. And as Jesse, you mentioned, Epic Games is working very proactively to streamline these processes and pipelines for all of us, so that we can actually stay within the engine to do all our work.
So yeah, so there's definitely an issue here. We're going to let's see, let's try this again. Maybe we just drag out the hips. Root. Edit skeleton. We're going to edit that. All right, we're going to get this, and we're going to disconnect. Right. Let's do that again, because what's happening is we're getting a weird. See, is there a joint there? Let's see. Let's see. Joint. Come on. Give me a joint. Yeah, it's weird. For some reason, it just usually what should happen is when you do this and you hit add, it should just kind of, if you do like a default click there, it should jump in there. But for some reason, it's not letting me do that. So let me try that disconnect again. We're gonna just get rid of that bone. See, okay, let's add again. Let's see. Joint, come on. Yeah, now it's not even. Oh, let's do that. Yeah, now it's not even doing that. That's weird. Should work there. Not sure why it's doing it there for some reason. See, see that. Yeah, no, that's fine. Joint, add. All right. Yeah, that's weird. Yeah, I'm not sure why that's it's not letting me do that. Maybe I need to just disconnect. Let me see this joint really quick. Let me see if there is. Let me zero that out. There we go. Let's do that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this back into there. Now this should work. All right, let's accept. All right. Let's try that now. Yeah, see, now he's walking. There we go. Now he's walking good. Yay. All right. Yeah, see, now he's walking a lot smoother. We're not getting that jittery. I must have killed something on this guy. I think I deleted something by mistake on our guy here, on the big guy, as I was, we'll get rid of him. And yeah, so that's kind of, yeah, we'll add him back in. See, and then we'll do animation, do walk forward, bring him in here. So right now what we're in is this is the sequencer, right? So if anybody hasn't used sequencer, sorry. If nobody's used sequencer, this is where you will animate. But yeah, see, we're getting all that. And now this is great. So see what's happening, how he's walking forward and this one's not. Let's open up that. Sometimes these accidents are good, right? So right now, this is where we discuss root motion. So if we go down here and you hit enable root motion, now he's walking, right? So you'll save that. And now when we do this again, you see they're walking forward now. Is he still not walking forward? He should be. Let's see. But anyways, that's where you would enable root motion inside that animation. So once again, if you go in here and you scroll down, right? This is your you open up the skeletal mesh and you go to the this animation tab here, and you'll see right here enable root motion. If I stop it, it stays in place. But if I enable it, that's going to walk forward. And why is that important, right? This is great so you can get proper foot placement, so you're not getting sliding and things like that. So
Jesse, actually, this is a great point that you made about enabling and disabling the root motion of an animation. Now, what we see is a lot of game designers, especially, they tend to use in-place motion rather than transformative motion, correct?
correct.
So from the perspective of visual effects and animation and cinematics, what in your view is the best option for the animation? Now, any animation can be switched into root versus in motion unless it was motion captured or created for the specific purpose of in motion.
I've always, at least in the industry, is, you know, in terms of Unreal, if you can use root motion, use root motion. That's always been the at least from what I've heard, that's kind of what you want to do. If it's available to you, definitely you want to use it. But that's kind of what, you know, when you see it, like look, the foot placement is great, especially on the alien. If you see and that's because we have the root motion enabled. It's just going to help you that much. And also too, it's easier so when you tweak your timeline. So let's say you bake this or something and you want to kind of tweak all that stuff, or if you're animating, let's say you don't have any animations, right? And you want to animate it from scratch. When you use that root motion and you start animating the feet, you know, you can control the slider that way. You know, you can minimize your foot sliding and whatnot, so you can actually have good control when they place that foot down. You go, okay, you can drag and back and forth your end frame, and you know, to get that foot placement just right, and then you can do that with the next one.
Absolutely. And just for our viewers, as a pro tip, yes, you can use the transform track. As you had seen previously, the goblin character, he had a line that was going, and he is being moved linear from point A to point B. But then from the perspective of blocking or the foot placement, as Jesse correctly mentioned, the foot placement may come across as sliding because your character is moving or being transformed from point A to B very quickly or very slowly. Whereas having the root motion, the animation has the perfect timing for the feet placement, correct?
Yeah. All right. So that's pretty much what you'll do. So just a quick recap. You'll go into your, let's go back to him again. You'll go into your skeletal mesh editor. You're going to go into skeleton. Um, you'll go ahead and create your joint on the ground. And if you want to, like I said, you want to make sure that your joint has like 0 rotations on it, because that's what was happening. I think there was a 90-degree rotation. So when I added in the animation, it was coming down flat. So I just came in and did that and zeroed everything out. And then you can just parent your hip hierarchy back into your root, and now you have a root bone. And now you can use root motion. Just don't forget to tick the root motion box.
Another thing, anyone who uses Mixamo animation characters or bringing animations from Mixamo, great resource. Mixamo skeletons do not have a root bone, correct?
Well, these, believe it or not, these two are Mixamo characters. So that's great that you brought that up. So like if we go to, I'm going to open up the goblin skeletal mesh. He did not have a root bone, and I added it in that same process. And as you saw, like earlier, he was walking normal. So we'll go ahead and close that sequencer. Let me see if it'll update it again. Let me see if it. Yeah, for some reason he's not walking. I must have deleted something, but anyhow, that's kind of what you do there. Okay, so let's go back to our slides here. Okay, so we did that. So let's rig something, right? Let's get started. Here's where we're gonna start off. Like I said, we're gonna start off a little bit small and then kind of get a little bit more and more advanced, and then we're gonna get lost in the weeds in the last one. I'm just kidding. We'll be fine. Okay, so let's jump into the engine. Let's rig a prop. Let's rig a vehicle. Let's rig a character, and let's hope nothing breaks, right? Because this is a live demo and it's tech. And I'm basically breaking the cardinal sin of rule that you never do live demos with tech, but I'm going to do it anyway. Okay, so let's start with our prop. Don't save. Okay, so let's open up this. All right, so this is our prop, right? This is our guy. This is our good old.
Screen switch, Jesse. Screen switch.
Oh, I'm not screen sharing again. Sorry. Why am I keep doing that? All right, can you see that? Okay, so this is our guy, right? I'm gonna focus on him there, and so this is one of the important things that you want to kind of know about rigging, right? What is it that I'm going to rig, right? What are the parts that I want to move, right? Because that's going to dictate how you place your joints. So I know that you want to inspect your model, right? So we all know that when we look at something like this, right? We have this little hammer, the cylinder moves, the trigger guard moves, right? Those are going to be the moving pieces, right? And they're going to rotate, right? And the actual gun itself will rotate, right? And it'll also translate, but everything else will be like a rotation, right? So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you have those pieces that are going to move and all that they're not in conflict with each other. So in other words, you don't want the cylinder to be attached or have geometry connected here, because then you're going to start deforming those faces that are touching, right? So you want to make sure that these are separate parts, right, when you make it. But then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to combine everything, right? Because even though they're combined, those individual pieces are still in there. even though they're part of one mesh now, but if you were to select faces and you kind of flood one of those pieces, it'll just connect anything that's touching that geometry, right? Or that's connected via vertices. And we'll touch a little bit more on this when we get into the control rig for this. Okay, so let me see where we're at. Okay, so okay. So I'm going to open up the control rig for this prop here. I'm going to go into Magnum. Rigs. All right, so this is basically a traditional simple control rig setup, right? This is not a modular rig because we're using the editor here. So these are basically, you're going to have a couple of, you're going to see these nodes on the right. You'll have your skeleton hierarchy here, and then you'll have this visual here on the left, right? So if we look, right, we have all our joints, and I place them in where I want my model to move, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of show you that these are the controls that we want to move, right? So let me go into lit mode. Maybe that'll look a little bit better. We'll go into here, right? Yeah, we can move our cylinder, right? And then we'll have this trigger pull, right, where we can control. And then those are the parts that we want to move. And then of course we have this thing, right? Okay, so that's kind of what you want to do, right? You want to know, okay, I know that this is going to rotate from this point and that there's going to be some limitation. Like I don't want it to rotate a full 360 because in the real world, that doesn't happen. The same thing with the trigger here. You want to make sure that there's a limitation on how much you can rotate it. And you can do this inside of control rig, right? You can set these minimums and maximums, right? And then you kind of want to go in here, and I forgot to show you this last control here. Let me open this one up. And you can, yeah, so we have like this full on, and this is what I'm talking about, why you want to understand how this thing moves, right? So by doing it like this, right, if you know like your animator is going to, you know, whip this thing out and like spin the cylinder, you want to be able to give that capability to your animator, right? So you want to think of that. So, okay, so how do we do this? How do we make all this, right? So I'm going to go ahead and reset everything. Let's see, Control-Shift-G, right? All right, so first is you have to start with your skeleton, right? We're going to, let me go into lighting only. You want to set your joints first, right? So we went through that, right? We did that in the skeletal mesh editor, right? Where we added that root bone. That's where you're going to bring this model and you're going to go ahead and start placing your joints, right? And don't worry, we're going to go over weight painting in the very next thing, but what you'll do is you'll weight paint your joints. And what that means is you're going to give influence to a joint, a certain area of the geometry. So that joint will control and move that area, right? So how do we set up these controls, right? Okay, easy. So what we're going to do is we're going to, let's do this live, right? Why not? Let's kind of do this. Let's get the static mesh, right? Oh, that's another thing too. Whenever you want to do a control rig, you need a skeletal mesh, right? So what I started off with is I had this basic static mesh, right? Which is basically there's no bones, there's no nothing in it. It's just a regular piece of geometry. And what you can do is you can right click and you can convert it to a skeletal mesh. Once you convert it to a skeletal mesh, then you can take it into your skeletal mesh editor and add in the bones that you want, right? So here, I'm going to go to my skeletal mesh. I'm going to go ahead and right click, create, and we're going to go to control rig, right? So it's going to make this new node here. We're going to name it CR for control rig, Magnum, and we'll do live, right? Okay, so we're going to double click on that. All right, so now you have this empty graph here. You have this, right? We have our forward solve, right? So the forward solve is going to be what allows us our controls to drive the bones, right? That's the forward solve. So you have this, and you have something also called a backward solve, right? So we're going to add this in here too. And what is this? So backward solve is basically the opposite, right? So let's say you have an animation, right? And you want to tweak it. So how do you do that? You have to bake it onto your control rig, right? You have to get that animation onto the controls of your control rig. So how do you do that? That's where the backward solve comes in. That's the logic. It's getting all your bone information from the animation and then adding it to the controls. So then all your bones will kind of move into place, and you'll be in the same position as the animation. And now you're free to edit the animation in real time. And we're going to go over that. So if that sounded like alien, we're going to cover that. Okay, so we're gonna start off with our forward solve, right? So you want to get your root joint, and actually, right? What this one, right? Jesse, widget reflector, right? We want to add in demo mode, so that way you can see what I'm clicking on. Okay. Right. So then we're going to go here, and I'm going to hit Control, not V, sorry, Control N, as in Nancy, Control N, and that's going to give you your first control, right? So what I want to do is I'm going to hit with the control selected, Shift P, right, to clear out any relationship there, right? And as you notice, it takes the name of the bone, right? Because I had it clicked on. So if you click on it, it'll give you the name, but it'll also place the joint in the location of the joint. It'll place the control in the location of the joint, right? So now what you want to do is, with this control selected here, we're going to have a details panel here on your right side. So all of this is the information of that control. So you never want to touch the transform on this menu. You want to go here to shape, make sure it's visible, and here you have shape properties, right? So if I want to change this into whatever, I'm going to make this a circle. And thick, right? You have all these different variations you can do, but as you can see, my control, it went from a sphere to now a thick line circle, right? And here I can adjust the scale on that if I want to. If I want to make it bigger, I can go ahead and do that. As you see, I'm dragging. I can do that. If I want to change the orientation, I can do that all here. You want to do that here in the shape transform. You never want to do that here, okay? So now, because this is going to rotate all around and 360, I don't need to worry about minimums and maximums. We'll worry about that for the other pieces. Okay, so then we're going to go ahead, and now we're going to go to our next piece here, which is the trigger joint, right? So we have the trigger. We're going to go ahead and hit Control N again, as in Nancy, right? Control N, right? And now we're going to hit Shift P, just to kill any relationship. And the name trigger joint control, that's where, remember we talked about hierarchy and naming conventions? This is why you do that. See, it automatically does it for you. So if you have a good naming system, it'll go ahead and add this for you. It adds this little suffix of underscore control for you. So we're going to go ahead, and we're going to make this it's the trigger, right? So I'm going to do a triangle thick. Right, so now we kind of sort of see we have this triangle there, but I don't want it there, right? Because that's going to be hard for me to grab. So we're going to go to our friend here, the shape transform node, and I'm going to go ahead, and this is your X, which is red, your Y, which is green, and your Z, right? Which you can kind of sort of see here in your axis. We're going to go ahead and move it down on the Z a little bit, all the way down here. I'm going to lock this so I can scale it uniformly. I'm going to go ahead and scale that. And I know that I'm going to rotate it on my X 90 degrees. And then I'm going to probably rotate it on my Y 30 degrees so we get it nice and pointed to the front, right? And I still think it's a little bit, here, let's move that. It's still a little bit big, so we're going to scale this down a little bit, right? And then I'm going to go ahead and move it on my X a little bit right underneath the trigger, and we're going to move it down. All right, so that is my first placement of the control, right? And okay, so I'm good with that. Don't forget, you need to drag in your trigger to your root, because the root is going to control. Otherwise, the gun will move and the trigger will stay in place with its control, right? So now we have two controls that we've just set up, right? And now we're going to go into the hammer, right? We're going to hit Control N again, right? We're going to Shift P. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to create a half moon circle here, or half circle thick, right? And then again, you will rotate it on the X90, right? And then I'm going to go ahead and move it back, move it up. And I'm just using these tools right here to kind of go ahead and do that. And I'm going to scale it down, and I will probably rotate it in the Y a little bit right here, right? So that's kind of where I want it. Okay, so that's my next joint, and then I'm going to go ahead and drag that in there, right? So we have our hierarchy. We're almost there. Stay with me. We're going to hit another Control N. And as you can see, this is pretty automated, right? Like it's very repetitive, right? We're doing this. We're going to go ahead and for the cylinder, I think I'm going to go ahead and this is the cylinder. I'm going to do a quarter circle. Let's do quarter circle thick, right? And it's over here. I'm going to rotate it on my Y90. And then I'm going to bring it out on my X a little bit here, and then bring it out on the Y a little bit this way, and then we're going to scale it down a little bit. Okay, so this is going to be the this is going to be what releases the cylinder with this little piece in front here. Okay, so now, all right, we're good there. I'm going to go ahead and now I'm going to add this into my oh, and real quick, I'm sorry. All these controls should be parented to the root, not to each other, right? Because the root is driving all these. The only one that will be parented to another one is going to be this cylinder joint, right? Because this one is going to, when it rotates, it's going to take the cylinder with it. So we're going to get the cylinder joint. We're going to go ahead and hit Control N, Shift P. We're going to go here and we're going to make this one a hexagon, right? We're going to make it a hexagon thick. And I'm going to go ahead and rotate it on the Y90, right? And so now we have these, and I'm going to move it a little bit on the X this way, right? Okay, great. But this looks kind of, man, everything's red, right? Like danger. But I want to change the way this looks, right? I'll make sure you parent here. I want to change the way that this looks. So I want to go ahead and I want to make my trigger, I don't know, I want to make it green. You go ahead, you hit green. Okay, we got a green trigger now. You want to make this one orange. Click here on the color, orange, right? And now we'll make this one something else. We'll make it this pink, and we'll leave this as red for the trigger for the hammer, and for the base we'll make it orange, right? We'll make this one orange too, right? Something like that. So now we have these. We just created these multiple shapes, right? But when I do this, nothing happens, right? Oh, how do we do that? Well, that's where the forward solve comes into play, right? So we're gonna make this small for a second, and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna concentrate on this guy right here. So forward solve is going to basically get your controls, and you're gonna set your bones, right? So what we'll do to do that is I'm going to grab my root control and just drag it into here, right? And I get these options. I'm going to get control, right? And you're going to see this node pop up, get transform control. So then what we're going to do then is I need that control to drive the bone. So I'm going to go grab the bone, and I'm going to drag it in here, and I'm going to select set bone, right? And now what you want to do is you want to get the transform, right? And this is color coded, right? You see how this is orange? This is orange, so it's kind of color coded. So you're going to plug it in there, right? You're going to go ahead and connect this execute to the execute, and now we have connected our first joint. So this should work. Yeehaw! Right here, boom, boom, boom. See, we got a rootin' tootin' fighting 357 Magnum here, right? So Okay, so we got that connected. All right, so now let's do, the rest is pretty much simple, right? It's pretty much just drag and drop. So if I want to, right, this is, you can grab your trigger joint, your hammer joint, your cylinder joint, right? And you're gonna drag all these guys in here, right? Sorry, drag them in here, and you're gonna get control, right? And then we're just gonna lay these guys out, right? So I got trigger joint, I got my hammer joint, I've got my cylinder release joint, and then the cylinder joint here, right? So we're gonna lay all these out, and then I'm gonna grab the bones, right? The remaining bones that we have left. I'm gonna drag them in here, and I'm gonna hit set bone, okay? And now we have all that set up here. And now it's just a matter of connecting everything, right? So now you wanna make sure, like, how do you know what's what, right? If you go to this item, you'll see bone and trigger joint. So that's how you know that this is the match for that one, right? So you can go here. We're going to go to our next guy, right? Let's move these guys over a little bit so we keep it clean, right? So we have this one is hammer joint. So we're going to go ahead and connect that into there. Sorry, to the value. Same thing here. Connect to the orange to orange, and then orange to orange, and then we got to make sure that we connect all these up here, the executes, right? So here, here, and here, right? So now, oh, we got one more right here. So now this should work, right? We're going to hit compile. And now, let me shut off my bones here so we can see this pretty good. See, selected only. Wait, bones. Selected only. Okay. If I grab this guy, it should work. Woo! Right? Hammer. And now we're going to get this guy, and this should work. We got the rotation of the cylinder right here, right? But now I want to rotate that cylinder by itself, right? We have that ability, right? And then I want to test out the trigger, and right, we got that going, right? So now here's a little shortcut, right? Let's say you tested this, right? But I have all my controls everywhere. If you select one and you hit Control Shift G, everything gets snapped back into its original place, right? And that's going to be your starting point again, right? Let's go back to here. Man, let's just test it. Okay, so now let's do the backward solve, right? And the backward solve is very easy. All you got to do is we're going to get these nodes that we just made. You're going to select them all. You're going to Control D to duplicate. You're going to bring them down, right? And we're going to connect our before we connect our backward solve, we have to do the opposite now. We have to get the bones and set the controls. So how do we do that, right? So you're going to go to each of these, right? And you see how it says control? We're just going to set it to bone. Set it to bone, right? Oh, and make sure that you have also the bone, not the control. So you want root, trigger joint. I'm going to set this to bone, hammer joint. Then we're going to do this again, bone. Set this to cylinder release joint. And this last one will go into cylinder joint, right? And then we got to do this the opposite for these, right? We got to open these up. We got to change this to control and cylinder joint control. Same thing here. Change it to control and cylinder release joint control. And then this, we got like a couple more to do, and then we'll be done. Hammer joint control. And control, trigger joint control, and our root, right? So our control and root control. Okay, so now we have that set up. We plug in our backward solve. All right, so how do we know that this worked though, right? Right, we're gonna hit compile. If you go up here, right, you see that we're on our forward solve. But if you click on this and you go and you select backward solve and you just click on it, This, you see how this border is yellow? If there was anything errors, it would give you something, it would give you like a red, it would give you some sort of warning that there's an error. So this looks good. So now what we can do is we could take this into our sequencer, animate it, or put an animation on it, and then bake it to this control rig. So now this is going to allow us, if we want to modify that animation, we can do that. So we can work backwards.
Let's see, quick question.
Sure.
Is there a particular order that the controls, the get control and set bone, or set control and get bone should work, or we can execute and fire the nodes in sequentially because each one is connecting? What is the best practice? Should we follow the skeletal and control rig hierarchy, or?
Yes. Okay. So I'm glad you asked that. Okay. So this is a great point to introduce this. So you have on the bottom here, you have your blueprints, right? That's going to be all your logic and any functions. But here is your execution stack. So order matters. The way that you do things, it does matter. So because it's sequential. So what's happening here is, so if you go on this, right, and I click on forward solve event, you see how this got highlighted? And then I go to the next thing, get transform. That's the next order of operation. So that's kind of, so it does matter. So like for instance, characters can get pretty tricky. So if you have like some sort of complex thing and you see something's not working, it might be that you might need to move it down on your stack or something, or maybe do it after a couple nodes. But yeah, that's basically, you have to go and judge and feel that out on your specific character. But that's a great question. Yes, very important. Is the order that you stack it in. Okay, so what I want to touch on now is, now that we have everything kind of, I'm just going to show you on one control so you can kind of understand how this works. You want to basically set, right, a min and a max, right? So what I want is on this triangle, I don't want it to basically grab that, my triangle. Here, triangle joint. Did I do something wrong?
You're in backward solve.
Oh, there. See, I was wondering why. I was like, wait, it's not working. Appreciate it. Yeah. So okay. So you see how this is going all the way around? Yeah, we don't want that, right? Yeah, that's ugly. We don't want to do that. So what we want to do is, this is where you'll go back when you click on that control, right? Here, remember I said do not touch this, right? Don't really mess with this. But what you can change is this min and max, right? And for me, sometimes I do the little trial and error. I know that I want it to rotate on the y-axis, right? Because this is what's right. And in reality, that's not going to translate, and it's not going to rotate in the x, and it's not going to rotate in the z. So I don't need to do rotation maxes. I just need to do it for that y value, right? So we go here and we go to rotation, right? And I'm going to check this and this, right? So if I hit 0 and 0, right, I don't think I'm going to get any movement now, right? Because I'm going to, yeah, see, I'm stuck. I can't do anything, right? And let me set that back. So I want to like add, I believe if I, sorry, let me turn this off, sorry. If we do, okay, if we turn these back off again, right, because this is going to let me, I know that when I rotate this, right, right about here, I'm going that like that -10. So probably, and you might have to like play with this, because sometimes I'll put it in the wrong one sometimes. So I'll do -10, right, and then 20, right, on the max. So we want maybe 20 like that. So now this should work. So if I hit this and I go, see, I can't go more than that 10 degrees. No matter how much I rotate it around, it's staying in place. So you just created a min and a max for that, and it doesn't matter. So it's always going to be locked into this value between 20 and -10. So that way you're not getting any crazy like rotation. So you could do that there. Another thing you can also do too is because right now if I do this right and I hit W, I get that locator, right? But that locator could be a little bit misleading. Why? Because the trigger's not going to move. So you can go ahead and set this from an Euler transform to a rotator, and now you'll only get the rotation locator. So we can do that, and then you'll hit compile, and now, and then so you'll do that for the rest of the joints, except for the root, because the root is going to be it needs to be able to translate, rotate everywhere. And that's it. That's pretty much it on this. So we've set up joints. We did our forwards and backwards solve, right? And we have a prop that's good to go. So what I want to show you now is, okay, these look great, right? But these controls are kind of, I'm not really happy with them. I want to make something custom. How do I do that? All right. So what you want to do is you want to go ahead and I'm going to show you, I have in here curves. Okay, so let me click on this static mesh. Let's see where it's at. Okay. Let's see if I can get in closer here. Okay, so this I made in Blender, right? So what I did was I took the gun into Blender and I got the outer edge of the cylinder and I duplicated that as a curve, and then I just created, I converted it to a mesh, right? So I did that for the trigger, I did that for the hammer, and I did that for here, right? So, and I exported them as FBXs. So this is an actual static mesh, right? So what you want to do in this case is you have your three static meshes, right? These are going to be, I'm going to turn these into controls now, custom controls that we can use. So, we had the circle, the triangle, and but I want to make it look more, more relatable to my object. So what you want to do is you want to right click in your content browser. You go to animation control rig, and you click on control rig shape library, right? When you click on that, you'll get this guy right here. So we're going to double click on this guy. And here, you'll have this, but you'll have this array elements. I have 3 because I already added mine, but you'll hit the plus button, and then you'll import the FBX that you have already. You'll assign it to here, right? And you'll do that for as many controls that you want to make, any custom controls that you want to make, right? And then you name your library, right? So mine is Magnum Controls Library, right? So I'm going to go ahead and close this, right? And we're going to go into this control rig here that I made for custom controls. Okay, so here, as you can see, I made custom controls of the trigger, the hammer, the cylinder, right? But how do I get access to them, right? So what you're going to do is inside of your control rig, you'll have this, where is it? Class settings. You go into your class settings in your control rig and you go to shapes. And here you'll see shape library. Your library won't show up there because you have to add it. So you'll hit add element, and then you'll locate the location of your library. And then if you get some weird looking thing, you probably want to drag your library to index 0, right? So now what happens is when I go into this control here, right? Remember on the details panel, and I click down, my controls now are showing up, the ones that I created. So I have Magnum Controls Library. So this is a curve. So these are my 3 custom controls that I created. So they're now showing up with the default controls. So I can go ahead and add these on now to my liking. And that's how you do that. So again, I was able to make these, and they work just fine. And we go ahead and we go, and it just feels a little bit more natural for that and identifiable. So I know that if I hit this, I know I'm moving the trigger. If I move this one, I know I'm moving the hammer. So just something simple. So just a simple concept. And that's it. That's it for the prop. All right, we did our first prop. All right.
That's cool. Now I want to animate that gun.
Okay, so now we're gonna move on to our vehicle scene. All right, so let's do. Let's open up.
But wait, folks, there's more.
Sorry.
I'm just saying this is just the start. There's more to come.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot. So hang tight with me, people. All right. So we got our Dodge Demon here. So I just kind of want to show you the final before we go in and we make it, right? And we're going to use another car just to show you from scratch how we do it. Okay, so if I go here and I select Dodge Demon control rig, okay, you see immediately, right? We have some controls in blue. We have this in yellow, right? That's our global control. And then on the right, we have some controls in red, right? Our tire controls. And if you take a look at this, right, and I go ahead and I animate, if I grab our global control, I want you to pay attention to the tires. The tires are moving in accordance with the global control. All right, so that's what we're gonna go ahead and set up right now. All right, so let's do it, and we're gonna do it completely from scratch. Okay, so let's go. Let me go to lit mode because this thing's probably gonna burn my graphics card. Let's go into Challenger. No, actually, we're gonna go into override pack. All right, since I'm in South Florida, I'm keeping it South Florida real, so we're gonna do a Ferrari. Let's go into, so this is a static mesh, right? So does everybody remember what I said? We need to convert this into a skeletal mesh. So we're going to right click, convert to skeletal mesh, right? And hit convert.
Just quickly, just to clarify for our viewers, when we bring in a model from the marketplace or TurboSquid or Kitbash or Fab.com or even in Maya or Blender, if we are making one, that comes in as a FBX and that is a static mesh. It is just the geometry.
It depends because a static mesh just doesn't have any bones. There's no skeleton. There's no skeleton or anything. It's just a static geometry object. Because sometimes TurboSquid and Fab, some come rigged. Some objects come rigged, or they'll have a skeleton available, so you'll get that. So when you import it, right? Like if it's something without any bones and you import it, right? You're gonna get a menu, and it'll just say import, static mesh. There's no skeleton assigned to it. If it detects bones, you'll see an option for your skeleton, and it'll say skeletal mesh and checked. And then if you want to use an existing skeleton or make a brand new one, it'll go ahead and do that. So right
we
here,
had another question from Nikhil here as well. That so this static mesh obviously doesn't have a skeleton.
yeah.
So
Nothing.
we have to build the skeleton for this vehicle, for this car.
Right, that's what we're going to do. So before we do anything, we convert it to a skeletal mesh, because the thing is, we need to convert it to a skeletal mesh in order to open it in the skeletal mesh editor. So that way we can add the bones that we need to add. So and you could do this with any static mesh. You could do this with anything. If you want to have a, I think they did it in Unreal Fest. This guy, he just had a bunch of pipes. He brought that in. He put bones in it, and then he binded it and he painted the weights, and he was able to do. But he converted that geometry to a skeletal mesh first before he added it in.
With the dragon coming out.
Right, exactly. Yeah, the dragon came out and all that. So he converted that into a skeletal mesh, added the bones, he weight painted everything, and then it came out. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna open up the skeletal mesh editor for this Ferrari, right? That is weird. Why did? Oh, because I'm on lighting only. Let's make it lit. Let's make it cool looking. All right. So okay. This brings me to my point. Something that's important that you want to know with modular rigging, especially with vehicles, right, is you see our axis here. Y. You want to make it Y forward. I'm telling you, this is going to save you a lot of headaches, because if you don't, the global control, when you set it up, your wheels are going to be backwards when you move that, make that forward motion. So how do we do that, right? Very simple. Let me close that out really quick. So if we go here, right, and I do and I drag this static mesh into here, right? As you can see, it's already facing Y forwards, but let's say it's not, right? What you're going to do is you're going to position your car so that it's 0, 0, 0, right? And rotate it so that it's Y is facing forwards. What you'll do is you'll go to the modeling tool, and what you can do is you can go ahead and inside of X form right here, you can bake your transform, and that'll zero everything out and make the Y in front. So now you're good to go. So that's kind of what I did with this car, because when I did the Dodge, I didn't do that, and the wheels were acting all funky, and I'm like, okay, I need to kind of reverse it. So so I did that.
Essentially, it's not only about creating the rig and then rotating the model in the scene. The actual placement and orientation needs to be Y forward. Now, is that only for vehicles, or is that something that we should keep in mind even for characters and props? And
I think this was only for vehicles, only because you're dealing with that, and you'll see when I go into the control rig. There's a in the details panel. There's an axle axis for the wheels, and it's X, right? So if you're facing Y forward, you know, it's going to rotate on X. But if it's facing backwards, even though you go forwards, the wheels will go backwards instead of forwards. That's why I learned that. I saw that the hard way. I'm like, oh, let me try it the other way. Let me see if I make it this way, and if I, because I didn't think that would matter, but apparently it did. All right, so just I wanted to throw that tidbit of information out. Okay, so now we're going to go into our skeletal mesh. All right. All right. So we're going to go into skeleton, edit skeleton, right? Now, I like to go into a wireframe here, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into, I believe it's going to be left or right, left, right? No, it is front. Yeah, for some reason, yeah. Okay, let's do that. And I'm going to change this to wireframe. Okay, so I know, right, that you can kind of sort of see where these vertices meet in here, right? So I know that I want to place my first joint, right, which is, this is the front of the car, right? And I'm going to add a joint at this point, but first, okay, we have our roots, right? We always make sure we have our roots. And I know that when I hit add, right, I'm going to hit add. I'm going to go ahead and find this spot here. Make sure you have within mesh, right? So within mesh is going to put it inside the shell, right? You have a couple other options here, right? You have camera plane or on the mesh, right? On the mesh, I believe, would be more for like facial rigs. So that way you have your joints sitting on the outside as opposed to inside the face. So that's why I think that's why you would do that. That's my take on it. All right, so we have that, right? And I'm going to go ahead and name this front tire. Actually, let's do this front tire underscore L. Now, man, gotta do it again. Front tire underscore L. Okay, now I'm writing it this way for a reason. For some reason, with the mirroring function inside of modular control rig, it likes this type of naming convention, the underscore lowercase L, because it for some reason when I had like uppercases and I had it like as a prefix, like I first did my tires as FR, like front right tire. It didn't like that. It wouldn't find the R and then followed by an underscore. It has to be underscore L and underscore R. So it tends to like that naming convention for some reason. Okay, so I did that, right? Okay, so you see, let's go into our top view because I want to make sure that, okay, so I know for a fact that right now it's not sitting in the middle. So I want to go ahead and edit that vertice, sorry, that joint. And I'm going to go ahead and just push it a little bit here towards the middle, right? And that's my good placement for my first joint, right? So we're going to hit OK, accept, right? And let me save just in case we crash. And but it's not going to crash. Not going to crash. Okay, so we're going to go back to our wireframe, right? Let's go back to our front. Okay, we're going to edit our skeleton again, right? And now what I want to do is I want to place my joint back here, right? So I'm going to go ahead and add a joint and here. And if you notice, right, because I clicked off that joint, right, and I cleared it, it's coming back to the root. If you stay on that last joint and you click again, it's just going to connect it to your first joint. So you don't want to do that, right? So doing that, we're going to hit, I'm going to go to top, right? And I want to make sure that this joint, right, matches this joint, right? So I'm going to hit accept for now, right? But I want to make sure that these two joints are aligned, right? So what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to edit skeleton. And what I'm going to do is, because I moved it in the X, I'm just going to go ahead and copy this value. And then what I'll do is I will select this joint and I will plug that value in the X. And now these two joints are aligned, right? Now, again, this could depend, because if the tires are more out, you won't need to do this, but they look like they're pretty much aligned with each other. So I may drag this out a little bit right here, just right here, okay? But that's okay, because these aren't even going to rotate anyway. So, okay, so we're going to hit accept, right? Let's name our joint. Again, this is to edit. Actually, I've got to go to edits. Sorry, edits. We're going to hit rear tire underscore L, right? So that's our rear tire, right? So now what we want to do is, okay, we're going to grab these two joints and we're going to go ahead, and we know that we're going to need to mirror them across the X and our Z, right? So here's our options. So we're going to mirror X, right? It's going to look for underscore L and replace it with underscore R, right? And let's mirror, and that's it. Now you see we have, oh wait, I had the root selected. Whoops, it's not good. Let's just do this. Mirror. Okay, there we go. So now if you see, I have front tire R and rear tire R. So he named it pretty good. So we have our tires ready to go. And okay, so now what's next is we got to weight paint this, right? So we want to weight paint this, and for that I'm going to go into let me go into lit wireframe, right? My suggestion on these, right, is, okay, so you're going to go to skin and edit weights. You don't have to bind, because I think what it does, wait, what happened? Did it do something? Did it just get rid of my joints? It did. Oh, wow. Did I not hit accept? Uh-oh. Okay, let's cancel that. Let's do that again. Edit skeleton. Yeah, it even got rid of my naming convention. Okay, hold on. I'm going to do rear tire underscore L, right? And we're going to accept, right? Right, and then we're going to edit the skeleton again. We're going to grab these two. I'm going to go ahead and mirror them. Should say accept. Okay, now this should be good. Okay, so let's go to our skin, edit weights. Okay, so now I didn't go to bind skin. I just went straight to edit weights, because if you do, by default, I think it automatically just sends everything to the root, right? So everything in white is what's controlled. Anything in black means there's no influence. So if I did anything with the root's going to move everything, the tires, the carb, and we don't want that, right? I want to assign weights of the tire to the front tire, right? So what's the quickest way to do that? So I like going to here, right? You have your brush where you can go ahead and you can make this smaller, right? And you can go ahead and start painting, right? But that feels kind of daunting, right? So we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go to mesh, and here you can select vertices, right? But I want to be able to grab faces, right? And then I want to have these, and you see everything is grayed out right now. But what you do is, as soon as I click on one and I hit this flood button, I just anything that's connected to that face gets highlighted as part of this influence, right? So I'm going to go ahead and do this. Sorry, you got to hit shift click when you do this. So shift click all the areas that you want. I'm going to get here. I know these guys are separate for some reason. These lug nuts here. So I'm going to grab all these. I'm going to hit flood and see what I'm missing. Okay. I'm going to grab these here, hit flood. Okay. And we want to make sure we get this guy and this guy down here. We'll hit flood. Okay. You don't want to do the caliper, because the caliper on a tire doesn't move, because that always stays in place, because that's your brake, right? So that's not going to move. So that's not going to get influenced. And, just come here and make sure that the back of the tire is, we got everything there, right? But one thing you want to make sure that you don't do is, you see that right there? I accidentally selected these spaces, right? And we don't want that. So what, oh, sorry, it's not, it's a hole. Ha, sorry. It looked like a little bit, it looked like that face was highlighted, but you want to double check, because the thing is, if you do like a marquee, it gets the back faces too. So you don't want that. You want to make sure that that's why I use the flood tool a lot, right? And I have better results that way. Okay, so now I got my tire, that. I'm going to go down to here. I'm going to hit add, click on add, and then I'm going to drag this to 1. Now, I don't know if you noticed that on the bottom, it just basically the influence went from the root to the front tire, right? So now I can pretty much get rid of that, the root, and just trash that. And now we just have the front tire. I'm going to hit accept, right? And now if I grab this joint and I rotate it, my tire is now rotating. We got a great rotation on the tire. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to mirror that weight over to here, right? So what I do is I'll select my my front tire. Let's go to edit weights. I'm going to I have my front tire selected, and I want to get my my front tire right. So I'm going to control click, right? So I have both joints selected, right? I'm going to select affected, right? So that way it gets those vertices of whatever's being affected by the weight painting. And then I'm going to go to, what is it? Edit weights, mirror weights. So we're going to mirror on the X, right? Sorry, on the, this says the Y, but I would say mirror on the X. And then we're going to go from positive to negative. Let's try that and let's see if that works. Should work. Now if I hit front tire, nope. You basically kind of have to play with this and see which axis is probably the correct one. Try mirror this one. See if I hit accept. Let me go back into edit weights. Did not like that. Okay, so we're going to undo that. Let's go back to edit weights. Front tire, okay, front tire. Okay, but that's how it's supposed to work. You just have to mirror it across your axis, and it should go that. But if you're having some issues there, I just showed you a quick way to you saw that the flooding doesn't take that much time. So we can technically go into here, front tire. We'll get this guy. We'll get some of these guys in here, and we'll go ahead and click on this. Click here, 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 here. Let's get here and here, and we'll flood all this. Okay, we'll get this guy, flood it. And last but not least, I think this should be it. Yeah. Yeah, and like that, we have this pretty quick. So we're on the front tire. We're gonna just hit add again. We'll drag that up, and now we have our influence on our right tire. I always like to go step by step and test it along the way, just to make sure that I didn't like accidentally paint any weights on something else or whatnot. Make sure that you don't nothing else. Nothing. I didn't catch any other geometry, but that looks to be good. So yeah, do that. All right, and then we'll go ahead and we'll finish up with the last ones. Right, we'll go to edit weights. We'll go to front tire. I'm sorry, rear tire. We'll go and we'll paint this really quick. We'll flood it. And we'll get it here and here, here, and here and here. And let's flood. All right, we're missing the this guy right here. Flood. And here, oops, here and here. So you pretty much have to shift click on everything. So if not, you'll lose your selection. Flood. Okay, I think we're good on that. Things good. Okay, we'll go ahead and add. I'll add this in. And what was I at? No, it should be on this rear tire. Add rear tire L. We'll add, and that's what it should be. Okay, get rid of that. All right, we'll accept. And last but not least, we'll do our final tire. We'll check this out. Yeah. Yeah, and if you see something moving, that's just the viewport editor. It's some noise, so it's not actually moving anything on that end. So we'll go ahead and we'll select our last joint, and we're going to go ahead and edit weights here, and we'll go ahead and do that. Select this here, 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 here. We'll flood everything, and we'll get here, here, flood, and here, here, flood. Just make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, we're good. All right, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to add that. Bring that to 1. Delete that. We'll accept. Okay, so now we have our tires, right? We have everything that we need now to bring this into control rig, right? So our tires are there. We're good to go. So now we're going to save this, right? We're going to close it. And now we're going to, that skeletal mesh now, we're going to right click, create, and we're going to go to not control rig, but modular rig. We're going to hit modular rig, right? And we'll name this live. We know which one we're dealing with, live. Okay, we're going to double click into that. Okay, so right off the bat, I'm already seeing something weird, which is this tire. Which tells me that something's up with the skeleton. So what I want to do is, let me jump back into the skeletal mesh editor. Let me look into the skeleton really quick. I just want to make sure it's that right left one. Right tire rear. Right tire rear. Okay. Right rear tire. Okay, so this should be, let's edit this. Edit. Let's name this to, this should be rear tire R. And let's name this F2 rear tire L. Accept. Okay, so that should be, okay, that should be good. Save. All right, let's try this again. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete this one. Let's delete that control rig. Let's do a new one. Create modular rig. And if we get that same error, see, okay, we're good now. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, you see here, these are the modules that control rig, that modular control rig has, right? These are pre-built for you, right? And the way that this is set up is you have connectors that you assign to the modules, right? And your connectors are going to be your bones. So, but right now, like you automatically, it creates your root and your directional. But this is a car, right? I don't think that's accessible. I don't like it there. So I always like to make my controls up top. So what you can do is you can click on root. And right here, you have the 3 settings for each of those. You have your root control setting, your global control, and your body offset, right? So I know from doing this over and over, I am going to go to the transform of the shape. And on the Z, I'm going to go ahead and move it, I believe, 150, right? And then I'm going to go ahead and do that with the global. I'm just going to move everything to 150 on the Z. And let's get the root control and shape transform and 150. Okay. All right. So now I have that control there, right? And if you look at your rig hierarchy, right, you have your controls here. You have these sockets, right? So modular rig works with sockets, right? That's what's going to basically, the controls are going to attach to, right? These sockets, right? So I know right off the bat that I need, if you go down here and you scale this, right? You go down here. There is a wheel. You have suspension. We're not going to do suspension in this class because that's super technical. Like I'd have to build like a really good rig for that, and there's not enough time for that. And then the vehicle proxy is kind of like if you add that, where you can kind of get the car like sort of shaking with the tires still in place. It kind of does like this nice little movement. I think they did a presentation with the scooter once with it, and it's pretty cool. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and drag my first module right here onto this, right? And right now, you said the connector is my front tire underscore L, and it says wheel as my module. But I'm going to rename this to keep it clean, right? Is front tire underscore L. I'm going to do that. And I'm going to continue that with these two. So I'm going to drag and drop. Oh, before I go to there, what you'll notice is when I made that module, here's you're going to see you have a direction giver. And now you have the module that's attached to that connector, right? So when you hover over it, you see front tire underscore L. This direction giver is just basically what is controlling the direction of that tire. Now, what I've come to figure out is whenever you do the rest of the tires, for some reason, it adds those direction givers onto the very first joint that you made back in your skeletal mesh. So like everything you'll see is going to land on front tire L. And we don't want that. What we can do is you can leave it with its respective tire that it comes with, or because we're going to use the roots to control the movement, you can just go ahead and select this and drag it into the root. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and do this one. We're going to go and do the rear tire L. So we're going to go ahead and rename that again. So rear tire underscore L, just to keep everything there, right? So you see, right? You see how it gave. Okay, see, we had a little mistake. Wait, undo that. Do that. For some reason, it added it to the root. Okay, let's try that again. It's not like rear tire. Okay, rear tire L. Okay, let's try that now. Rear tire underscore L. Okay, so then we're going to move that direction onto here, right? Onto the root again. But here you see rear tire L, rear tire L. So we're good. So these modules are in the right place. So now we want to do the other side, right? Just going to go ahead and drag and drop. Same thing. We're going to rename this front tire R. Okay, and then, sorry, my typing's horrible. Front tire R, right? And then the same thing, drop the direction up to the root. And then last but not least, we're going to get the rear tire R here. So we're going to rename that. We'll name it rear tire R, right? And now we'll drop that last direction. Okay, so If you notice, if we grab all these now, right, you see there's these white circles. We're going to grab each of these, right, and we'll go into the details panel. And in the module settings, we're going to add our control size to like 2, right? Now, one clear indicator that something's wrong is that the controls are white. So what you want to do is, we're going to go back to our hierarchy. You see these parent controls? Okay, this is a problem. So right now, if we don't fix this, when we move the global controls and we rotate it, you're going to see the tires are going to have their own individual rotations. They're not going to rotate uniformly with everything. So what we got to do is we're going to drag our tire into the root. We're going to drag all our tires into the root here on our modules. So like everything now should be there.
So essentially, Jesse, it's same as what you were showing us previously with the Magnum. The hierarchy of the way you built that skeleton has to reflect in the positioning of the control hierarchy as well.
Right. So, and I'm going to touch on that on what I was talking about with the remember we talked about the Y forward. So if you come down here, right, I'm selecting tire front. You see the axle? The axles are basically the lines that the tires rotate on, right?
Mm.
So if you look, we are on the x-axis, right? The tires are rotating on that axis. That's kind of why when we move forward, right, the tires move in the right way. But if you have the Y going the opposite way, the tires will move the opposite way. So you want to make sure that your car is facing Y forward. But now, if you notice, the minute that I parented everything, you see my controls now are blue and red. They went from white to blue and red. That means, okay, that's good. That's a good thing, right? So now, but the last thing you want to do is, so if we do this right here, if I get this control, right? Let me go to lit mode so we can see it good. And I move, right? You see the tires are moving now, right? They move good, right? Well, why are they moving, right? If you go back into this module, right, and we go into the details panel, right? Yeah. All right. You see, we have simulate checked. So simulate, when you get that, it simulates just the rotation of the tire. So it's great. So that's what's causing that to move. But now here's where this is important. So you need to make sure that these are parented to the global control, because if not, this looks fine, but watch what happens when I rotate. You see how the tires have their own rotation. And that's not good. So what you want to do is just drag all these to the global control. And we'll do like that. And now, if I rotate this thing, you'll see that the tires stay in place. And just like we did with the Magnum, you can go into these and set min and maxes, right? So that way you're not over rotating on your animations, right? You can go ahead, but these now have their own where you can go ahead and rotate them and whatnot. And that's it. You have a fully working vehicle that works in sequencer that you can animate. Yeah, that's all right.
So you're saying that I can actually now afford a Ferrari?
Yeah, you can totally drive a Ferrari now. I know I'm living vicariously through Unreal. Like I want it. Although with gas prices, we might not be that lucky. Okay, so we're 2 for 2, right? So we did the Ferrari, we did the revolver. Now we're gonna move into let me save this level. Now we're gonna move into modular rig for a character, right? Now, if you use something like Mixamo with the root bone, you're gonna get it very nice and easy, and everything works, right? But what if you have a custom-made rig that modular rig doesn't understand, right? So I'm gonna go through that process right now, because we're gonna go ahead and we're going to do this from scratch. So
Hey, Jesse, just a quick question. We've got here, do you, from Nikhil, do you have to rig vehicles a certain way so they work with game controllers?
Um, here's my rule of thumb, right? With any rigging, rig it the way that it's done in the real world, right? So a car has axles, right? So all that's doing is your logic will basically, like, let's say you have your tires, right? And they're gonna rotate together and they're gonna turn together, right? So what you're gonna do is, what you'll probably do is some sort of logic is, you'll say on button left, right, grab Z rotation of joint 1 and 2, minimum of whatever 30% or something, or 30 degrees, and then on the right joystick press, it's the opposite, right? So that's all you're doing. That's pretty much what you're going to do. You're going to have some logic there that you'll create, and
And
then
then you're binding it to the input tables of your controller and so forth.
right, and then you'll probably have some logic that, like, when you go forward, is driving the route, and then what you'll have some logic as well that'll say the translation of the route will control the rotation of the wheels. That's kind of what's happening here in modular. There's some code in there that's grabbing the x-axis of the joint and rotating it as you move forward with the global control. That's all it's doing. So let's see. Let's open up the next guy. All right. Modular rig. Do that. All right. So I'm going to showcase that this does work. There is some funky things that happened, but I will, maybe somebody on here might know this, but so let's go in here. Let's go into lit mode. All right, so we're going to rig him. We're going to go ahead and rig this robot here. So what I want to kind of show is, you got to grab this guy, that the modular rig works. If you see everything, right? Right, we're going to go into here. Let me go F11 for this. Everything works. Like, so I did this in modular rig, and the controls are the right color. You see he's moving good. The pull vectors work. You're getting that. His arm movements, and the FK switches. So I don't have access to the details panel full screen, but this right here, it rotates pretty good. So all that. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna go ahead and rig this guy up, and let's see. Let's do this. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and let's find him. We're going to go to, let me go to unlit mode for this. Characters, runner, and we're going to go ahead and find the skeletal mesh right here. And I'm going to right click, and we're going to create modular control rig again, right? And we're going to rename this live, right? So we know which one we're working on. So as you can see, I did this quite a few times because I was like, all right, let me just make sure. Okay, so right off the bat, we have our menu. Quick little tip here: you can select biped, and you can filter out all the unnecessary modules that you don't need. So you hit biped, and now we got everything that we need for this character because he is a biped character. And right now, if I hover over this, it says spine socket. Drag and drop the spine module here, right? So normally what will happen is, if you have like a rig for Mixamo, you do this and you drop it in, you would automatically get everything kind of sort of populated, right? For those modules for you to drag and drop. That didn't happen for me here, right? It's basically asking me, okay, define the spine end bone. So I guess for this joint chain, right, I need to find what my last joint is, right? So for me, we have spine 1, spine 2, spine 3. So I'm going to go ahead and put spine 3 and put it in there. And now when I did that, you saw my controls got generated, and now it opened up a new module for me to connect to, a new socket. So I'm going to go ahead and drop my neck socket into there. And we do that, right? But now I got no more options. I'm like, well, what do I do now? And I have these floating sockets appear. Like, so, you know, I'm not really sure what to do here, right? So through the powers of guessing, right? Sometimes that's how you learn, right? I said, okay, I have a thigh socket. Let me see what happens if I drag my leg over to here. And look, I got this kind of created. So what I always urge everybody is as soon as you make something, rename it to _L or something so you know what leg you're dealing with. And now I need to enter my thigh bone, my pelvis bone, my foot bone, and my knee bone, right? So I'm going to go and I'm going to find my thigh bone, right? And that's my left leg. So for me, the thigh was left up leg. This is where I'm saying, I remember, Jesse, you asked me about, do you have to name it the way that Unreal names its stuff? You don't. So because obviously this works, I'm not using Unreal's naming convention here. So I have left up leg, right, which is you can see it highlighted there in green. That's my thigh. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. My pelvis bone, right? I'm going to go ahead and select my pelvis bone and add it in here. And then my foot bone, let me go back to my left up leg, which is left foot bone. We'll add that. And then my knee bone, which is left leg, right? We'll add that in there. Okay.
And that's where what you said, Jesse, that's a very important point, not only a pro tip, but having that basic understanding of anatomy, not only human anatomy, you know, like you said with the car, you don't want the brake to be connected and weight painted. Why? Because the brakes don't move. They are stationary. The wheels rotate.
Right.
You know, having that understanding of how things operate in nature, quote unquote, is an integral part of rigging it properly.
Yeah, exactly. And just to touch again, I'm gonna kind of rehash this again. Naming convention. Imagine I had to find the thigh bone and it was named joint 27. Yeah.
We've all been there.
Yeah. So imagine I would go, I'm like, what's joint? I would have to click on each joint to see which one's the actual leg, or click on the leg itself to find it. But at least with this, I could just go and I know where, you know, I know which one's my joint. Okay, so now by doing that, I just opened up a new socket, right? It's like, ooh, I opened up a new level. So I'm going to go ahead and drag my foot socket there, right? And you notice how this turned blue? So that's good. That's good, because now
So you do the chain essentially.
exactly, because now my IK control, that cube there, it's blue. So that's good, right? Because we know from modular rig that they do the one side is blue, one side's red. So so the fact that I got blue on one side on this left leg is good. So I'm doing something right. Okay, so now I have this twist bone, right? What I did on my end, I go, okay, what's normally going to twist is your thigh, right? But I think if you add it to either your thigh or your calf, I mean, you'll be fine. But what I did was I dragged it to the I put it on my thigh, so thigh bone, twist bone, and now that module, that thing just disappears, right? Because you don't want to have anything coming out, because you'll get some weird behavior. Okay, so that's it for that leg, right? So I'm like, whoa, okay. Let's go, and what do we have left? All right, so I did my thigh socket. I'm gonna do my other leg, right? So let's kind of stay on the bottom, because I know that's working. So I'm gonna do my thigh socket, R. I'm gonna add that. I'm gonna rename this to leg _R, right? And then thigh bone, right? Same thing, same process, right? Now, if you click on this, right, you'll get this menu. But one thing I notice is it doesn't let me scroll down. So I always end up going down here. I don't know, somebody's got to fix that. But even type in a search, but like I can't scroll down anything. So I want to go to my right leg now, right up leg, and we're going to go ahead and add that in. I'm going to get my right leg and add that to my knee. gonna get my right foot and add it to my foot bone, and then my pelvis bone. I'm gonna come up here and select it, and then add it in here, right? So now I'm good, right? So now I kind of have like this module there, right? That's kind of showing up, but see, it's acting a little bit differently than the left leg. So I add it, and now I'm getting prompted to add in my foot bone, my ball bone, and my foot bone. I didn't need to do that last time, but for some reason it does it here. So what I did was I located my foot bone on the right foot, and then I just kind of add it to here, right? And my right foot, come on, leg R, C, right leg, E, right foot bone. Should work. Right foot bone. Let me see.
Jeffrey, I think you need to select the bone below the right foot. It says another right foot bone.
Right forefoot. That's right forefoot. This is the actual foot bone. Hold on a second. Let me see something. Okay, leg R. Oh, you know what? Maybe that's what's giving me a problem. Hold on. Let me delete this module really quick. Because I didn't do my twist bone on the right leg. Let me do that. Maybe that's what's giving me the issue. Okay, right leg, right up leg. Okay, we're gonna do that. Okay, so now I should. Okay, now let's drag in the foot socket. Place the foot socket module here. We should get that in. Okay, it's gonna give me that foot bone, right? See, right foot. It should give me foot bone. Nope, it's not gonna let me do that, is it? Let's see. See what left foot bone. There we go. Let's try that. Okay. Work. Ball bone. Let me see.
Oh, you want the right foot.
Oh, yes, you're right. Yes, you're right. See? Right foot. There we go. Try that. And then ball bone should be yeah, see, this is what I'm not a really big fan of this nope, it's not letting me do that. Why? Yeah, you see this menu? Yeah, it's just really janky. Okay, right forefoot, right toe base. Let me see. Right forefoot. You know what? Actually, let me fill that up. See if that works. No. Yeah, it's not liking this for some reason. Leg R. Okay.
Can you also mirror the left leg onto the right leg, like the way you showed us for the vehicle?
I tried that like with the hands, and I got weird behavior for some reason. So I guess it just depends on your rig, but you can like if you were to like if you go and like here, let's try that with the foot. Let's see if this lets me. Maybe if you go here and you go mirror, access to flip should be yeah, I guess Z, right? Because you know, go across Z, replace. Okay. Nope, I didn't do anything. Okay, that just made a another foot. Let's see if that mirror. Let's try X. Sorry, X. Oh, sorry, Z. No, this is right. Yeah, you're flipping. You're mirroring the X-axis, and you're flipping it on the Z. Yeah. See. So like right now, if I grab foot, it should come over to here, but it won't do that. It'll just. I didn't do anything. Anyhow, let me try this again. Foot socket. Are you being mean to me? Let me try. You know what? Okay, I know what I did. You know what I'm going to do? Instead of that, I'm going to drop it on the actual socket itself. Right? That made another one. Okay, so let's get rid of this guy. Won't even let me delete anything now. Wow, that's crazy. Okay.
Yes, modular rigs are currently quite experimental, and they tend to at times throw a tantrum.
Yeah, you know what? Let me try. Yeah, it's not even letting me delete any of this stuff. Hold on. Let me try redoing the leg again, and let's see if that maybe it'll play nice again. Let's try the leg again. We're gonna do thigh right socket. We're gonna put it in here, right? Come in here, thigh. Damn, did I do that wrong? Oh, undo thigh. Come on. Sorry. We're gonna bring that leg into the thigh. All right. And then it made multiple legs, didn't it? Okay, so let's delete that one. Leg one. Okay, we're gonna rename this to leg R. All right, and we'll try this again. All right, so let's get the leg up, right leg up. I'm going to go ahead and thigh bone, right leg, knee bone, right foot bone, and then pelvis. We're going to add that into the pelvis. Okay, so now twisty bones. Let's add those twist bones inside the right up leg. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is instead of dropping the foot into the socket itself, and let's see what happens. See, it worked. See, so dropping it here in the viewport sometimes doesn't work. Sometimes you just have to actually drop it in the actual socket in the rig hierarchy. So let's rename this to foot R. We'll name this one to foot L. Right. Okay. We're good to go. So now you see, right, red, everything looks good. All right, so now what's next is the arms, right? Okay, but I don't have anything on the arms. Same problem. So this is where it kind of got a little weird. So I got my shoulder, and I'm going to drop it into the shoulder module. I'm going to drop it into that shoulder socket. And if you notice, when you do that, it creates a new socket here, which I'm going to assume is the arm, right? So I'm going to go ahead and rename the shoulder to shoulder underscore R, right? And then what we want to do is on that socket up there, that one that's just created, I'm going to go ahead and I don't know why it keeps doing that. I'm going to drop this arm into that socket, right? And now, if you notice, I have a bunch of bones that it's asking me for, right? So we're going to go ahead and rename this to arm underscore L, and we're gonna feed it the bones, right? So we're gonna go to my arms, which is the left, right? So we're gonna feed it the hand. We're gonna feed it the shoulder bone, which is the left arm, right? Shoulder bone, and then elbow bone will be the left forearm, which is that. Okay, and you notice now I have my blue IK control there, which means that's good. So last but not least, we want to get these twist bones, and I'm going to put that in the forearm. So we're going to go ahead and add that in because that's what's missing. Here, I believe. Okay, left forearm. And now we're good. Okay, so this looks good.
Quick question, Jesse.
Sure.
You put the twist bone in the forearm. Why did you not put it around the shoulder area?
I think you could put it in either or, but like normally when you twist, you kind of do this a little bit. So, I mean, even though you do get a little bit of twist, you can, but usually when you rotate your hand, your forearm usually does the majority of the twisting. So that's kind of why I do it that way. But I suppose you can't put it there. I mean, you know, if you have like multiple bones for that too, I just don't have that many like I had a simple chain on this, so I would just put it.
Mm.
Okay, so good, right? So now we have our last but not least, and let's save. Let's compile and save because I don't want to save all. Okay, I don't want to lose any work and do this over. Okay, so shoulder, we're going to drop that shoulder in. You got the, we're going to name this shoulder underscore R, like underscore R. Oh, thank God. Okay, so I renamed this wrong. So this is shoulder L. And we'll do this. That's why it's very important to pay attention to your naming conventions. Shoulder R. Okay, so now I got that set up. So now that shoulder, once I made that shoulder R socket, it created this shoulder underscore R slash underscore socket. I don't know why it made that, but it made it. So I'm going to stick my arm on that one. And now the same thing. I'm going to go to my right shoulder. Sorry, right arm. That's my shoulder in my model. Hit it to the shoulder bone. And then right forearm is the elbow bone. And then the hand is the hand bone. And then again, twist. Get this last guy on the bottom. Flat up here. Where is it? Right forearm. And that is it. We now have this guy built, right? So let's see him in action, right? So we're going to save and pray to God this works because let's see. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and on this one.
The suspense is killing me, Jesse.
I'm sorry. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this control rig, right? And let's actually go to the outliner. Let's delete him too, right? We'll delete him too. So now, control rig live. That's the one that we just made. Now, if I do this, he should work. Let's go lit. And yes. Whoop, 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 whoop. Yep, that works. Yep. This works. Let's see, legs. Yep, everything's working. Let's go here. Go there. And let's check his head out. His head, there's neck, I should say. Walk like an Egyptian. Yeah, it does that. And yeah, this looks good. Yeah. So you can go ahead and access all these in Control Rig in your sequencer. So if you notice, yeah, I can go ahead and animate this. So let's say I hit I'm going to hit a key there, and I'm going to go ahead and make it really exaggerated. Yeah, there you go. You see the movement. There you go. So it works. And that's doing a modular rig on a custom character. So, all right.
And this character was made in Maya that you showed previously. It was rigged in Maya, the skeleton, the weight painting, everything, and then imported into Unreal Engine, where you have just made the control rig, the modular control rig.
Correct. Yeah, that's exactly that's what I did, and it works. So just goes to show you how powerful Unreal's tools are, where you can go ahead and get your custom character, and whether you have blend shapes or anything like that, you can even go here and modify your character now, right? So I think you discussed something like you had a question where they're like, what if you have a cape that you want to add to your character, right? You can go into your skeletal mesh editor, create those bones, right? Attach the geometry, you skin it, and then you can add physics or dynamics to it, and it'll flow and do all that. So
That's amazing.
And what's great is my personal goal and my advice to people is definitely learn the rigging, but if you can stay inside the engine, stay inside the engine and do it. Yeah, because that's going to save you so much time and headaches and stuff like that. But again, there are scenarios where you do have to go outside and do it. But yeah, so that's this one. All right. So last but not least, we're going to take a little bit of a deep dive into procedural control rigging. All right. So let me open up that level. And is everybody good on time? Does anybody need a break or anything? I mean, I can truck through it, so just let me know.
Right, everyone, are you all with us? Do you want a quick break?
All right. All right, so this is...
Looks like you've got everyone's curiosity piqued.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, well, my goal here is I want like people to understand this and learn it and not be afraid of it. It's not scary.
Yep. As a matter of fact, I put a little challenge in the chat for everyone as well about how you showed the animation fellowship cinematic with the hover bike. Seems like everyone loves that, and everyone would love to do a hover bike. So, and with the robot that you've just shown, imagine the robot actually driving that hover bike. So
Well, what I'm gonna do is this is that was one of my top. I'm gonna zip up this project, and you'll have access to all those characters. Everything that we just did here, you'll have access to everything. So you'll have access to that character. You'll have access to the rigs and all that stuff, and you can play with it. Before I do, I'll clean up so there's not a lot of multiple like control rigs, so that's not confusing for people. But I'll go and do that. Okay, so last but not least, right? We're gonna go into let's look at this is Sarah, right? Sarah is an adventurer, and let's see what she looks like, right? Okay, so this is Sarah. She looks pretty cool. All right, so okay, this is the rig that I built for Sarah from scratch using control rig, right? So as you can see, it's pretty involved, right? So we're gonna go ahead and let's hit check from here really quick. And let me grab one of these things. Okay, so I'm gonna throw out a few caveats here as to what's good and what's not so good about this. You see these controls right here, these orange ones, they're rotated a little bit. This is what happens when you have orientation on your joints. You don't want joints ever when you on your rig. You don't want any joints with rotations. Everything needs to be zeroed out when you bring it in, right? Because what happens is when you create the control, like we did with the gun, remember we selected the bone, we did Control N, it places it at the orientation and the position of that joint. So what happens is when I, like for instance, this red hexagon one, right? It would come in at an angle. You don't want that. You want everything to be nice and clean and level. And so that way, because then if you have it like this, you're not going to know what your starting point is. Your starting point should always be flat, right? So that's just food for thought. But I did this anyway because I was at the point of no return. I was like, okay, I don't have enough time to go ahead and create this from scratch, and you're going to see why. Okay, so this is what we're going to take a look at her, and then we're going to try to do some of these live on another character, and let's hope it works. Let's we're not going to build the full rig on the other character. I'm just going to go through like some of the nodes that you're going to want to know or that you should familiarize yourself with, and then I'll leave it to you to like review the video, and you can go ahead and try to like
well, I can't wait till the full course comes out, because you know what, I'm going to go through and relearn everything the right way.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's another thing too. I'm going to do a course where I go step by step on this, and I'm going to tell you what works on it and what you got to watch out for. And this could be 5.61 bugs or something, but just stuff that I ran into, but I still got it to work. At the end of the day, that's what you want, right? You want it to work. But you also want it to make it as least headaches as possible. All right, so where are we? Adventure pack, mesh. No, I want to go to characters, setup, and mesh. Okay, here we go. All right, where's it at? Okay, so this is the control rig, right, that we made. Now, at first, this is going to look a little daunting, but this is all the logic that runs underneath this, right? So, okay, so what is all this, right? So whenever you build a control rig from scratch, right, especially a humanoid character, you need three things, right? You need a construction script, a forward solve, and a backward solve, right? So the construction script is basically, this event is what this gets fired off before any other event, right? So this takes place. So no matter what you have in your level, if you have something connected to this, this is going to run first, right? So what do we use this for? This is where we drive most of the creation procedurally of the controls and the placement of them, right, on your rig. So we're going to go over this. And then once you kind of have your construction script set up, you move to your forward solve, right? And on your forward solve, right, this is where you're constraining the bones to the controls, right? So the controls are going to now move the joints, okay? Once you do that, you move on to your backward solve, which is basically reverse engineering what you did in your forward solve. So that way, when we play an animation, and I'm going to show you how that works at the end, what we're going to do is we're going to get an animation. We're going to place it onto the control rig, right? You're going to see it run. We're going to bake it, right? And that's the backward solve. And you'll see that all the controls will be in the right place and whatnot. Okay, so let's go and let's start off with this construction script. Okay, so here. Okay, so one of the things I like to do is I like to work in order, right? And I'll usually start with the spine, right? Because the spine's the center, whatnot. And then I usually move to the head, neck, clavicles. Then I do the and when I say spine, that's also going to include your pelvis and your root bone, all that stuff. And then I usually move, once I get to the clavicles, then I move to the FK arms, the fingers. Then I do the FK legs, and then I do the IK at the end, IK arms and legs at the end, right? So these are some of the nodes that you want to kind of see where I had. Okay, so we want to talk about arrays, a for each, the get parent and the get transform, and the spawn control transform. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this. All right, so this is our construction script, right? This is a sequence, right? What this is going to allow you, the construction script can only connect to one node, right? So what you got to do is, if you want to have multiple things happen, you got to run it through this node called sequence node, right? And here you can just keep adding more pins, right? So if I hit this plus button, you see I get that empty pin. I can go ahead and now add more logic, right? Now, the good thing about this is we're breaking this up piece by piece, right? And why are we doing that? Because this allows you to debug early. So like I can basically, like if I see I'm having a problem with my rig, I can shut all these off and plug one by one and see, okay, that's not where my problem is. Okay, let me plug in the next one. That's not where my problem is, and so forth. So this is going to help you kind of stay organized. So here, right, this is where I kind of set up my, remember we got the get transform and set and set your, sorry, we're getting a bone and we're setting the transform for the body control. But this is something that you don't have to worry about for now. Our main goal is this: the array node, a for each, a get parent, a get transform bone, and a spawn transform control. That's the meat that you're going to be doing on these things, right? This is for FK controls, right? This is a good amount of what you're going to do, right? So what this does is, right, to get an array, right, all you got to do is, you'll select your bones, the ones that you want in your array. So in this case, I want spine 1 through 5. And you'll drag it in here, and you can say create item array. That's how you get an array. So that's how you do that. We'll delete that, right? So this is where that array came from. Then you'll want to add it to a for each. And these nodes, you don't have to create these. These are built inside of Unreal. So like if I right click here and I type in for each, it's right there. It's under array, and I create it. And everything is pretty much like, you can see that there's a bunch of squares here and there's a little bunch of squares there. So you know that those are compatible with each other, right? So what does this do, right? We're feeding all of our bones into this array. So what this array is going to do is it's going to go through every single bone, right? And it's going to go through this loop, right? It's going to go through this loop of things, right? Until it reaches the end, and then it's done, right? There's no more information. So what's going to happen is it goes through each bone, and what it's going to do is it's going to locate the parent of that bone, right? Through this node, right? So we're setting it as the child of this get parent node. So it's going to say, all right, this bone is a child. What's the parent of that bone? And what it's going to do is it's going to get the parent of that bone, and with this name node, you're feeding the name of the parent into the parent control. So for instance, when I do bone 1, there's going to be no parent because it's the top of the chain, right? But when I go to bone 2, it's going to get fed into here. It's going to go here. It's going to be fed as the child. It's going to say, okay, bone 2, what's parent? Oh, what's the parent of bone 2? Oh, it's parent bone 01, right? Or spine 01 in this case. All right. Well, spine 01 will be the name of the parent control. You see how it's set to control here? And the child, the name of the child, which was, in this case, spine 02, right? Spine 02 will be the name of the child. So the parent will be spine 01. Sorry, the parent will be spine 01, and the child will be spine 02. And that's going to continue that until it reaches the end of this array. Now, what it's then going to do is, as it's doing that, at the same time, these bones are getting fed into this get transform bone. It's getting the transform, the position and the rotation of these bones, right? And the transform of those bones are being fed into this offset transform of the spawn control node. So now the controls will now spawn in that location of each bone, right? Now, make sure when you do this, there's this thing called initial value, right? You see how it's orange? Well, when you do a spawn control for the first time, and we're going to do this, don't worry, we're going to do this from scratch, spawn control. You'll notice the initial value is gray. You have to right click on it, drop down, and set it to transform. That's going to give it the input, so you can input transform information from the bones. All right. So let's go to our goblin guy really quick. Go to characters. Let me move this over here really quick so it's not in the way. So let's go to goblin. So
Jesse, when you had a procedural control array, as much as you were creating for Sarah, doing all that work to create that logic, as you suggested, then as long as the skeleton is compatible, we can use the same logic on multiple characters?
Well, yes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get to that point when I get to functions and inputs. So right now, like for instance, right? Let me actually bring this back really quick. So if we wanted to, right, because we're getting an input, right, of this array, I could technically turn this whole thing, if you select your nodes and you right click, collapse to function, right? And in that function, right, which I'll cover again, I'm going to set an input of an array, which means, let's say you have a spine that has 20 bones, right? Let's say you have a big dragon or something in the spine. You can get the array of all those 20 bones, put them in, and the controls will spawn on each one of those joints. So it'll be agnostic in that way. Like you can share that logic. So the construction script, that's what the purpose of that is for. You can copy this and share it with somebody, and whether it's an animal, a biped, or something like that, you can use this. And again, and you can also like shut off certain parts that you don't need. Like let's say you're doing just maybe you just need the IK portion of it or something. You know, you can go ahead and steal that. So yeah, that's just to answer your question. Yeah, that's what the purpose of the construction script is for. So you can build that logic, but also share that in insert rigs. Okay, so let's do this. Okay, so we're gonna get our goblin guy, right? So let's go to lighting. Okay, so let's show the bones, right? We want to show our bones. Select all hierarchy to do that, right? You go to this eyeball. All right, so we notice that we don't have any controls on the arms, right? So we want to set that up, right? So we know that we need a for each, a get transform, a get parent, and a spawn control. So let's set that up really quick. Let's do a right click. We'll do a for each loop, right? All right. We're gonna get we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna spawn a control, right? Spawn control here, right? Spawn control. Remember to set this to transform, right? And also to set your offset space to global, right? Because everything you want to set it to the world space. Okay, so now what we want is from the elements, right? We're going to drag off and we're going to type in get parent. Now be careful, there's a get parent and a get parents with an S. You want to get the singular one, right? Get parent, right? And then your first inclination will be to plug this into here, but we don't want it. We don't want this to be the we just want the name, right? Because that's what we need. So if you collapse this, right, you're gonna change that to control, and then you're gonna collapse this one, and you'll see name and name. So you're gonna drag this into name, right? And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to drag off off the element here. We're going to get transform. And you see we got to get transform bone, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to plug this into the offset transform. And then last but not least, we got to plug in the name, right? If you collapse this again, you'll have a name element there. You want to connect your name to the name of the child control, right? So that's what you want to do. Now, I ran into this issue, and I couldn't figure it out until I got rid of it. So, but before I get there, let me finish the loop. Sorry, I didn't mean to get off tangent there. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to feed this for each loop my bones, right? My arm bones. So I'm going to go ahead and locate the arms here, right? So we got, let me see, left arm. You don't want your clavicle. You want your shoulder. You want the chain that's actually going to move, right? So you want your shoulder, your elbow, and your hand, right? So you're going to get these three. So you're going to be tempted to just go, okay, I'm going to dump that in there. But you can get both sets. So if you scroll down, control click on right arm, right forearm, and right hand. You can now drag and drop, create an array. And now what this does is you have left arm, left forearm, left hand, right arm, right arm. Okay. So we have both the left and the right. So what we're going to do is we're going to plug that into the array, right? And now what should happen is we got to connect our sequence into this. And let's see what happens. Okay, so now something happened, right? You can't see it because, let me go into wireframe. If you go into wireframe, you see these spheres? Those are our controls, right? But we can't see that, so we're going to change that. We're going to go back into lighting only, right? So let's go, and so how do we do that? How do we change those controls, right? Well, in this spawn transform control, you have this little drop down called settings, and here you have shape. You go to shape, you collapse that, and now you have color transform, and here is where you can add the type of control that you want. So I'm going to do a circle thick, right? You still can't see anything yet, right? Because let's see why they're small, and they're also rotated horizontally, so you can't see them, right? So we're going to go back and, okay, so we know we're going to have to rotate these controls somehow, and we're going to have to scale them up. So under the transform, right, you have translation, scale, and rotation. So I know that I'm going to want to scale these up. I don't know. Let's go to 3, right? So it's gonna make all those. We're starting to see them now, right? You see those circles, right? So now I know I need to rotate them either in the Y, right? So I'm going to rotate them in the Y. Okay, and then I will probably, let's do this is X and the X. Okay, so we got 90, 90. So now you see I have controls on both sides of my character, right? You see the shoulder, all that stuff. And that was done procedurally, but we can take this a little bit of a step further, right? How do we make this? I want to, you know what? I don't want to have to go in there and, you know, I can go in the color, but the color will change both of them, right? There's a cool node called, if you drag on this, you type in colorize controls, right? You can colorize your controls. And now with this node, I can control what color my left side is, right? So if I want it to be whatever, oh, sorry, and before you do that, you have to connect your item to your controls. But you see how these are different? They're both blue, but they're different. If you click on this add array element, you'll get a 0. You can now plug this in. And now, once I do that, you'll see the red controls will change to green and red. So now if I change the red to blue, and this is in real time. That's the beauty of it, right? So now you have your IK controls, your FK controls set up where in the position. They're still not controlling anything yet because we haven't done our forward solve yet. But this is a procedural way to do that, right? So now let's go to our hierarchy here, right? In our I want to show you, and this is how you know if something is procedural, right? We made our left arm and our right arm, right? If you click on this, right? Notice right here on the top, this item has been created procedurally. What kind of I'm not crazy about is you cannot edit it here. It's locked. Any edits you'll have to make in this node, in the node graph, right? So if you want to change the scale, the rotation, the color, you got to come in here and do that. Okay, so now here's something that I kind of figured out, and I'm going to share with you, right? So right now you see that the arms, they're not connected to the main hierarchy, right? And I couldn't figure out for my life how to do that. So I was like, I was looking at Manny's control rig, and I'm like, okay, what can I? But Unreal is intuitive, right? So I'm like, okay, let me see what I get. So if you just do this, right? I know that I need to parent it to the chain, right? To the hierarchy. So if I just click on this and I type in parent, see what you get. You get a bunch of things. And look at this one, create a parent relationship. So I said, oh, that sounds like what I need. So I went there and okay, but I need to add in, right, a parent, a child, whatever, whatnot. So how do I do that? So sorry, uh, that one I tried, that one didn't work. It's actually let's try it again. We'll try parents. And let's see if we get set default parent, right? That's another choice, right? So I had these two, right? And this one really wasn't working for me. So I ended up going with this one, right? Because I'm like, okay, maybe I can try this one, right? And so what I did was I did a for each loop, right? And now I don't need all of my controls. I just need the very top of the chain. So what I can do is, I'll connect this to this. I can go into my control, right, which is, sorry, I gotta disconnect this really quick. What I need to do is I need to get my left arm, right, and my right arm, because those are the top of the chains. Drag them into here, right, and say create item array, right. So now I can plug this in, right, and I can set this element as the child, and now I can tell it what control I want it to be parented to. So in this case, I want it to be parented to the body offset control, right? So I can click on that, and then with this little arrow, I can assign it, and now, okay, this, you got to hit compile, I think, compile, and now my arms are part of the chain. If you look in, it's parented under body offset control. So that's how I was able to connect it, right? Now, the warning I'm going to give you is this. You will be tempted to do this because, and I don't know if this is a 5.6 bug or whatnot. So the way that I was doing it before was, instead of just connecting directly into here, right, I would add a concat node, right? And what a concat node is, it basically allows you to join two strings together, right? A word. So like if you said I want to join the word bone and the word control underscore control, so that way my final will be bone underscore control. You need this node, right? This concat node. So what I was doing was I was plugging in the name into slot A, and then on the bottom I was writing underscore control. So and then I was feeding that into the name, right? So now if you look, I got okay, I did that. Let me see with my arms. Body object control. Okay, so right arm. So then I did the same thing with the child too. So let me do that as well. I was feeding this the same node, right? Now, if you notice, now the word control is behind left arm, right? And it's on all my joints now. I have the suffix of control. The problem was, now I compile this, right? The problem was, now whenever I brought it into sequencer didn't like that. Sequencer gave me an issue that duplicate controls were being made, or transform controls were being, and even though there was no, you can see there's no duplicates of anything, it did not like that. So as soon as I disconnected these, it worked. So just kind of feeding you that I learned that the concat node. But what was strange is I used a concat node when I did the FK, and it worked. So I don't know if it's like an FK thing that it doesn't like, or what, but when I did the IK setup, it didn't have any problems for me. So, but yeah, definitely just connect it directly in, and you should be fine. Okay, so now we have our setup here, right? Let me see what I did. Let me compile. Okay, so now what I want to do is we have those joints, right? So now if you want to like, we go to our forward solve, right? There's a cool thing called, move that out of the way. You can do, there's a built-in function called FK chain, right? And just like before, we're gonna add a sequence node here, right? So we can keep this a little bit more organized. I'm gonna feed that into here, there. Okay. So now what I want to do is I can feed this into here, right? This FK chain. What I want to do now is I want to plug in all my controls for my FK chain and all my bones. But again, this is where pre-planning comes, right? So if we go to, I'm going to bring back Sarah for a second. If we go to Sarah, right, and you look at the, right, this is our, I did a left arm and a right arm. I kept them separate. And why? Because you want to be able to create FK and IK switches for each arm. If not, you're gonna make them for both. So you want to keep the arms separate so you can create the logic to have a separate FK IK control switch for each arm, and the same thing.
Also, you mean that if we don't do that, it will create it, but if I grab the right hand and move, the left is going to go with it.
No. So what I'm saying is, if you create, like, if you keep the arms together, right, in this logic, and then you create an IK switch, when you hit the FK IK switch, both arms will change from FK to IK. Instead of just, maybe you just need one arm to do it. That's more control. So that's why you keep them separate. So in this case, right, what I did with Sarah, right, is I just kept one set of controls, right? So like we can go back to our goblin, and I'm just going to do the left arm, right? So we're going to grab the left arm, left forearm. These are the controls, right? You'll drop them in. You'll create an array. And what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead, and it's pretty explanatory, right? It says controls. So you plug in controls to controls. And then you're going to grab the bones for the left arm, right? So you're going to grab the left forearm hand, bring that in, and create another array. And now, when you plug this in, right, our left arm should be working, right? So now we're going to compile. Let's grab this control. And look at that. We got an arm. Okay. So that's that. So you can do this same thing, right? You can continuously, you can feed it again, right, to the left arm, right, if you want. Or like in what I did was, like I said, I kept it separate, and we'll go over the FK IK controls, but I'm just gonna go over it. I'm not gonna rebuild it, so you guys can understand the logic of it. But yeah, but that's how you would do this, and you would do the same thing with the leg, right? You can do the same. You can just here, you can copy paste this, right? Let's copy paste this. Control D, right? We're gonna get rid of it. We're not gonna set it to the body offset control, so we're gonna get rid of this last piece. But what we can do is now I'm gonna get, all you got to do is feed it the correct array. So if I want to do my left leg, left toe base, and then this right here, I'm gonna drag these in. I'm gonna create the array, and now all you got to do is plug it in, right? And of course, we got to attach it to the sequence. We're going to go ahead and add that in there. Here. And look, we have legs. Let me turn off. Let me go to lighting mode. Yeah, see, we have the controls on our legs and on our feet. Super simple. This is procedural. So now I can use that for if I wanted to use my spine or on arms, or you can do this for both limbs, right? And You can even like I said, you can make this into like one function where you have like here what I did here, like where let me show you an example of a function. What's up here? Where here, see how I created an input of PV bones and IK bones? In the logic, you can create this so that way you can plug in your arrays. So I can plug in whatever. I was able to reuse this same function to create my IK arms and my legs without having to recode anything. I just duplicated it, grabbed the leg bones that were related to the IK for legs, and plugged them in, and it worked. And don't worry, I'm gonna go over this. This will probably be the last thing I touch on. I know it's 8 o'clock, it's running late. So yeah, so that's kind of how you would do that, right? So let me go into the where is it, the logic for the actually, you know what? No, let me do the IK first, and then we'll do the FK IK switch. Okay, so real quick, I made this function, right? And again, I'm going to give credit because this guy's he's awesome. You got to go to Proj on YouTube. Stefan, I think Biava, I think that's his name. Tidbits of information. I found out a lot about this stuff through him and watching and staying on top of his channel, and I got to give him credit. And also to the folks that presented on RealFest, they discussed a lot of this stuff. So I want to give people their correct, their proper acknowledgments and dues. Okay, so here we're gonna go into this, right? So what I did was before I made this into a function, this is what I originally had, right? This was my logic setup. I think it's Stephane, Stefane or something like that. There you go. Probably, yeah. Okay, so right now, what I did was I created a sequence node, right? So the way that this was set up was my forward solve was connected into here, right? Right. So let's say we're going to ignore this node for the time being. So everything to the right of this, right, is what I kind of set up outside of this function before I turned it into a function. So the very first thing I did was I created the for each, right? And I spawned a null, right? An empty actor, right? And I gave it an input parameter of a name, right? So you can set this up here, right? You can name it whatever you want, right? At this point, and then I kind of fed it here as the element to the parent node, and what I did was I parented it. I made the parent the body offset control, right? So I just all I did was I dragged in my body offset control. I dragged it in, and I made it as an array. I dragged it in, and then I just connected it to this for each, and then I set it as the parent for this null that I'm spawning in. So now we're gonna again these are the same characters that we've been messing with, right? Spawn, transform, control, for each, get, transform, bone. But see here, I was able to use the concat node, but I used it as a prefix instead of a suffix, and I didn't get any problems. So what we want to do here is we want to set. Okay, this first logic here is we're going to set up our pole vector, right? Which is basically, for anybody that doesn't know what a pole vector is, it's these controls back here that are part of the IK system. So if you move these around, you see the elbow kind of twitching. So that's kind of what that's for. So you want to kind of create those, right? So what I did was I'm creating two things. I'm creating the pole vector, and I'm creating the control for the wrist, right, which is going to drive everything. So we're going to have two spawn control, transform control nodes, right? So this one's going to be for the pole vector. This one's going to be for the actual the effector, right, the IK control. So what I did was I set the null to as a parent to both the pole vector and to the control. Then what I did was, after I did that, I ran another for each, right? And I had an array in here of my pole vector bones, which is basically your elbow joints are going to be the perfect placement for your pole vectors, right? Because you're going to the control will spawn here, and then what we're going to do is we're going to offset it outward, right? So that's kind of why these things are outward. There's an offset, but they get spawned at the position of the control. We're just moving them out and offsetting the transform on that. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the for each. I'm feeding it both the left and the right elbow joints, right? And I'm naming this input pole vector bones, right? So that way this shows up on our function node, right, as pole vector bones. So that'll be where we plug in our array of bones. So here I'll plug in my left and my right pole vector. So once that's done, right, we plug in that array. We go into this concat node where I'm adding a prefix, right, of PV, right? So this is going to be, if I go into here, right, if I go into this real quick and we show you, right, the PV prefix, it's the variable type is name, right? These are all variable types, and these are all the input nodes that we're setting up, right? So IK parents is a name variable, PV bones is a rig element key variable, the offset is going to be a vector type of variable. So anything with bones and controls are going to be a rig key element, and then naming is obviously names, right? So what we're going to do from that point is, once we kind of concat the prefix, we're going to feed it into the child name. Because remember, our parent is this null, which is then parented to this body offset control. So now that we have the child name, right, we're going to feed in the transform bone, right, of, remember, the elbows. So that transform is going to be fed into this initial value, right? However, what I'm going to do in this translate, right, for the offset, in the translate, I'm going to basically, in this pole vector offset for the translate, I'm going to give it a value of like -30 for the elbows, because they're going behind the elbows, right, on the y-axis. So if we look at the final, right, in here, I'm gonna go to that pole vector offset. You see how it has an X, Y, and Z? I'm moving the control on the Y, -30. That's how it's moving behind. That's all that's doing, right? And then when I did the legs, the pole vectors are in front. I just switched it to 30. So that's why it's on the positive side. All right. I hope that if anybody's kind of gets confused, just raise your hand, let me know, and I'll go over it again.
Just to break it down for anyone who may be wondering what is X, Y, and Z, because this is something, whether you're in Maya, Blender, Unreal, Unity, whatever, the transform accesses. Jesse, would you kindly just cancel out the post process in the viewport, and we can look at the transforms. So the green arrow that we are looking at in the transform gizmo is the y-axis. The red arrow, which is pointing sideways, is the x-axis, and the blue arrow pointing upwards is the z-axis. So when Jesse mentioned -30, the center point is 0 point. So it was going behind -30 points in units versus 30 units forward on that y-axis.
Right. So if you see the y right here, you see that this is our y, right? So if I go -30, that's why these joints go in this direction this way. Sorry, these pole vectors. And then if I go +30 for the knees, the pole vectors go in the front. So that's all. It's just going on that y-axis.
Yeah.
So
just a gotcha thing inside Unreal Engine. In those nodes where Jesse put those unit -30 and 30, those are not color coded. So that catches you if you're not careful.
Yeah, so like what I'll do is, look, I'll disable this really quick. So let me see if I disable the translation, you see how we have X, Y, and Z. See how I have -30 in there?
Yep.
That's all it is. And what I did was I made that an input. So that way when you see the function, it's on the outside. It's like making them, they're variables, they're just made like, they're not like it's not private. So like I'm making it public so you can see it and you can adjust it to what you need. That's all that's doing. So then, we have our colorized control, so that way the pole vectors can be blue and yellow. So then after that's done, the next sequence, C, we're going to go down here, and we're doing the same thing. Basically, we're going through a for each. We're doing the concat, right, of IK this time, and I'm feeding it the hand bones, right, because that's what the IK control is going to control, is your hand bone. So I'm feeding it both the left and the right. And that's where you have this IK end bones, like parameter the input that we're gonna see. And then we're getting the transform of those bones, and we're feeding it into the initial value of the spawn control, right, where the controls are going to be generated at. And that's kind of what, and we're setting it to, I believe, box fit. That's why we're getting those boxes, right? That's the type of control that we're getting, right?
And another thing is world space versus local space, where those controls are spawning.
Right. So remember, set your offset space to global. That's why you always want to do that. And remember, this needs to be set to transform, so that way the transforms can be plugged into this initial value, right?
Yeah.
And I would say, at least for the IK, we're only plugging it in this initial value. But when you do FK, we're usually plugging them into this offset transform. Okay, just keep that in mind. All right, and then we do the colorized controls, right? And now what I do is I would select all this, you right click and collapse to function, right? Now, the way that you would set this up, right, is if I drag this pin over to here, it'll create one of these inputs, right, that you see there. And then once I do that, I can now, instead of having it connected and having all this like spaghetti that you see right now, I can basically I can do a binding, right? So here, let me go to the one that's binded, like this one, right? So prefix. If I do that, I can remove the binding, but these are the bindings that I can attach to it, because what I did here is I dragged this this A node, I dragged it all the way over here into this, right? And I named it pole vector prefix, right? That's what I named it. So now when I go into the function itself, right? This is all that stuff you just saw is basically inside of this node. But now I have access to that. So like pole vector prefix, now I can just name it whatever I want. If I want to name it pole vector, whatever, or something else, I can name it whatever I want. And that's all I did with this function, right? And now I'm able to reuse this for the arms and the legs, right? So let's see. Let's actually see how we can set this up on Dobby really quick. I'm gonna try to see if I can maybe just. So that you have to create a function. So in order to create a function, just so you know, if you come down to here into my blueprint and create functions, we can name it IK setup, right? And now when you double click, actually, you know what? Let me name it something else. IK setup goblin. Let me see that goblin. We're not redoing that. Okay. This is kind of what you get, right? You get an entry and a return execute node, and all you got to do is pretty much feed it that same stuff. So if I go into my go back to the test right here and see if I can maybe copy paste some of this stuff so we can do it. Let me see if I can. So we can do some of this stuff live. Actually, no, I don't want this guy. See. All right, let's go into that setup. I'm going to do, okay, so now I have my entry and my entry. So now what I want to do is, okay, so now I don't have any of those nodes, right? So right now, if I were to just compile this, right, and save it, right, and I go to rig and I drop in this IK goblin, whatever, notice how I don't have anything there. There's no information. It's just this little node, as opposed to this node, right? They're both the gray tops. They have all that information, but I don't have that on this node. So I got to build all that stuff, right? So what I want to do is we're going to go in and we're going to try to quickly go and set this up, and then I will touch on the FK switch, and I think we'll end it there. So what you want to do is you can set up those inputs, right? Or you can drag them into there. Right now I'm going to, hold on one second. Let me go to here really quick. Okay, we're gonna go there. Okay, so we're gonna go and let this get fed. Okay, this here. All right. So what you can do is you'll feed this in here, and then you'll feed this return node into here, right? If you don't connect that, this won't work. So what you want to do is now, okay, so what we want to do is we want to add in our names, right? So if I drag this, right, and I'm just gonna show you a couple, that way we don't have to do this. But you see now I have that input name. So if I click on this node, right, see how it shows up name? Now I can name it what I want, right? So here I'm gonna name it IK whatever parent, right? So now if I want to, instead of having it connected like that, right, I can disconnect this. And now what I can do is I can do this. I can right click on it, on the node, promote the pin to a variable, and now I can select IK parent. So now this node is tied into that input right there. And that's how I did that. So you're going to do that.
That's how you're binding the logic of
right.
that particular input to the entry node.
Right. So now when you go and I drag in that node, now I have that IK parent visible. So that's all I'm doing. So that's pretty much the setup I did for the goblin, right? For Sarah. So just for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through this and set him up, but that's kind of what we did with Sarah. And you can go ahead and when you go to Sarah's, it's called Jesse Test Rig Fix. When you go to that control rig, you can see all the functions and just follow and see how I did that. And rewatch this on how I did that one node, and you'll know how to do the rest.
So for anyone who's brand new to rigging inside Unreal Engine, yes, it looks very daunting. There are too many wires, too many nodes, but once you understand the logic and you create, especially for a procedural rig, the first time is the hardest lift. You set up the logic the way you want everything to work. Remember what Jesse said, the hierarchy, the flow, the relationships, as long as that logic is working, once you set it up, then you can simply change your characters and the rigs are going to be created procedurally or automagically.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a couple different approaches you can do. That's why I'm saying check out Stefan's channel. He does a couple different things, which is, I was like, wow, I didn't even know you could do that. But he's and I think he works for Epic Games, so he's
now an Epic person.
Yeah. Okay. So once you get that, so I'm going to jump back into now. So that's our logic for our IK setup, right? So now you want to be able to control the switching, right? You want to be able to, how do you set up the switching, right? So there's a thing called animation channels, right? To create one, right, you'll you want to set it on like the global control, right? So if I go to the global control, you see how I have the FK. I don't know why that's being blocked, but I have something.
That's from your tool widget.
Hold on, let me see something. Yeah, there's like a box there. Let me see.
Yeah, that's the tool widget that you.
Oh yeah, yeah, okay. Sorry, it's blocking the it's blocking where the channels are. Let me see if I can close some of these and see if you can. Okay, there you go. So these animation channels, right? So I have arm L FKIK switch. I have arm R, left leg L, and leg R FK switch, FKIK switch, right? So the way you want to set that up is you want to do a couple things, right? You want to set up these animation channels. So to do that, you can right click on like your global control, new element, new animation channel, right? And what you're going to do is you're going to set this channel to a Boolean value, right? True or false, right? That's all a Boolean does, right? You're setting it to true or false. And then what you're going to do is you can drag it in here, right? In your this is in your forward solve, right? This is in your forward solve, no longer the construction script. The construction script was just setting up everything, all the controls. Now the logic to like run and make the controls work with the bones is now we're going to go into our forward solve, right? So here, what you want to do is you get this channel, you drag it into here, and you set it to a branch, right? A branch is just basically a true or false based on a condition, right? So if and right now we're setting the initial state of this FK switch to false, right? If you check it, that means it's true. So if it's false, right, which the initial state, it's going to fire the false node first, right? And then it goes into the series of logic, right? So there's a thing called, once you have your FK and IK controls set up, there's a node built into Unreal called hide controls, right? You click on that guy and you'll get this node, right? So what you want to do in this case is you want to duplicate it, right? You're going to get one for your FK and one for your IK, right? And then you're going to do it again, right? Again, one for your FK and one for your IK. So why are we doing 4 of them? Well, what's going to happen is if this thing fires false, right? Like you don't have the for the right arm, it's going to go into this pin, and it's going to do a check, right? And if you see, this one's unchecked, right? And what's this? These are our FK controls. So in other words, it's not gonna make these controls active. It's gonna hide them. But then it's gonna go to this pin, and see this is active. This is our IK controls, right? Because we have our pull vector and our IK hand. So it's going to make that one the visible one, the active one, right? It's going to make that one the active one. So this is going to do the switch, right? This turns off, this turns on. For the FK, if it's false, right? Let's say the user turns this, makes this initial true. The true pin fires, and it's just the reverse. You're turning on the FK controls, right? And you're turning off the IK control, right? So that means the IK control is not going to be, it's not going to do anything, right? Then what you do is you can feed it into this. Sorry, it's hiding them, right? It's hiding them, and deactivating them, right? So that's what that's doing. It's just doing a switch. So depending on which tick box you hit, if it hits IK, it's going to turn off the FK, turn on the IK. So you're going to have 4 of these for each arm, right? And the same thing, 4 for each leg.
Just a reminder for everyone, IK is when you have the box around the wrist. FK is when you have the circles around the elbow, the wrist, as well as the arm.
Yeah, I'm going to show that once we get into the sequencer. I'm going to show the arm and just do a quick switch so they can see real quick. Actually, no, we can do that here. We don't even need to go to sequencer. We can just do that right here. So just to kind of, for those of you that don't know that, let me turn off the bones real quick. So right now, you see I have my IK, right, which is the square and this. But if I go here to my global control, right, I click in on the global control, I'm going to go to my my IK switch. If I turn that on, you see how it switched to the three circles? The other one didn't, right? Because I didn't hit the right arm. But if I hit the right arm, the IK disappears, and then the FK controls appear. If I turn them off, we're back to normal. And you do the same thing with the legs. So that's what this logic is doing. These nodes right here. All these nodes. Yeah. So I'm just feeding it the controls that I want active and the ones that I want to hide if we make this true, and if we make this false, then we're gonna just reverse it. That's all. And then we feed it into the IK control, the IK2 bone. This is what's going to give control to your IK, right? This is now creating the constraint, right? The ability to move your bones around, right? So this is on the false pin. So when we go to false, remember we're turning on the FK switch, right, on this one, right? So I'm sorry, the IK bones are going to be the active ones when it's off, right? So we're going to go through this logic. So what we want to do though is, people sometimes when you switch between FK and IK, there's like a popping, right? It doesn't really follow. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create this logic of, we're going to run a for each, right? Once we have the constraints created on our IK arm here, we're going to do a for each loop. And in here, we're going to feed it the FK controls for that arm, right? So the upper arm, the lower arm, and the hand. And we're going to feed it into this for each loop as an array. Then what we're going to do is we're going to project it to a new parent, right? And that parent we're going to set as the bones, right? So the bones of the arm, right? Our upper, lower, and hand bone. We're going to use this at array index by index. So what that means is, so what's happening here is each control gets fed into here, right? It's grabbing the index, right? So you have 0, 1, and 2, right? These are the indexes. So at index 0, control upper arm is going to be matched with bone at index 0, right? And this is going to be its new parent. So that means it's going to get constrained to this bone, right? That's what this project to new parent does, right? We're setting the bones as the old and new parent and the controls as the child. But then what we're going to do after that is we're going to set the transform control as the transforms of these controls are going to take on the transforms of the parents. That's what this transform node is doing, this plugin right here. It's basically setting the transform controls to the positions of the bones, right? So the hand control is gonna be given the bone position, and it's gonna move into there. Same thing with the elbow. It's gonna find out where the elbow is and move over there. That's basically how. So we're basically, what we're doing is we're making the FK follow the IK. Whenever you move your IK around, those controls will start in the background. You're not going to see them, but they're going to be moving along under the hood. With the FK, we're going to do the opposite, right? So what you're going to do is when they turn on the FK switch, right? We're going to hide the IK controls, and we're going to show the FK controls. We're going to feed it into this FK chain like we did, right? We're attaching the FK controls to drive the bones now. That's what's giving the controls the power to move the bones. But then what we're going to do is we're going to parent constrain, right? The IK control to the bone of the hand, right? So in this case, we're doing the right arm. We're getting the IK control, the right IK control, and we're going to constrain it to the bone of the right hand. So when you're moving your FK, right, your bone is moving whatever direction, right? So let's say you're here and you move it over here. That IK in the background is snapping to that bone position. That's all it's doing. So then when you switch again to your IK control will show up in the last place that you left off. And I'm going to show that right now. We're going to do this right now. We're going to go, and if I do this, right, if I move this up like this, right? If I switch to FK, that arm shouldn't move, right? So we're going to go in, and it doesn't move. If I switch it back, see, we're not getting any popping, any weird movement. So the FK is moving along with it. So now let's kind of put this into perspective. Let me open up the here. So now if I were to grab this control, right? Let me grab the IK. So now we're in sequencer, right? I'm going to give it a keyframe, right? And I'm going to lift this up, right? I'm going to probably turn it here. We're hitting a keyframe. So now that's my beginning position, right? So technically, if I were to switch to FK, that in normal tradition, it would go back down to its spot. But when I switch, it's in place. So that's all that's doing. Now, what you there's a little bit of things to understand with this with the where is it? Did I close it? No. Okay. So I want to show you. This is one thing that I gotta kind of. I'm being fully transparent here with the rig. So what I noticed is, and if anybody knows this, please message me later. I'll be curious to know how that's done. In your FK, right? I'm sorry. Yeah, your forward. Sorry, in your forward solve. In your forward solve here, right? There's this node called send event, right? And what this does is it requests an auto key every frame. This is what's going to prevent your IK from popping when you switch, right? So when you animate something, it'll prevent the popping. That's all that's doing. So you got to set one up for the IK controls for the left arm, the one for the FK controls for the left arm. Same thing for the legs and the right arm. And then you also need to do for the switches, the switches themselves, right? Which is the arm FK switch and all that stuff. You got to set those up for that. So all of the controls for IK and FK for both arms and legs, and also the animation channels that you created. Now, for the controls, you need to use a for each because there's multiple controls. But for the channels, you don't. You can just directly plug in. You don't need to do that because it's only one channel. And that's what's causing that's what's going to allow you to do that. Now, here's the problem with that. I ran into this issue. Now, while that's all great, for some reason, the body control does not like that. So if I go here and I give this a keyframe, and I want to move it, it pops back. I haven't been able to figure out why, but however, if you go into here and you move it, it works fine. So it might be a 5.6, but I don't know. But the minute that I turned off that logic for the send event, I can move the body control. It just doesn't like that. It doesn't like that function for some reason. I don't know why.
So something is canceling it out.
I don't know, because all it's doing is it's just keyframing. It's doing an auto keyframe every frame, but it should still allow you to move it. It just pops back. Like, see, I don't understand why it does that. So if I were to
normally it doesn't allow you, but if you go through the actual, then
right.
It's okay.
Yeah, if I go into here, I can do whatever I want. Yeah, see, like, and I can keyframe it just fine. So just kind of throwing that out there. So if you run into this, that's why it's happening. And if you want to, like I said, if you want to set this back to, let me see, if you want to set this back to its original form. Oh, I forgot to mention. Anytime you want to reset your controls, do not hit Control Z. Control G. right? And if you get something like this, right, which is okay, I obviously I still have animations on there. I think yes, I do. Need to delete all that. So if you want to and if you want to for sure, make sure everything gets reset. You hit Control Shift G, and everything should jump back into place. Yeah, there we go. It just takes a minute to calculate. So now, so this was my final, the final thing that I built. Now, to ensure trust among the viewers here, I'm going to delete this control rig, right? I'm going to, actually, hold on. Let me undo that. I'm going to delete here, that control rig. I'm going to add an animation of walking, right? Sarah walk forward, right? So we can see he's walking forward, right? Let me drag this in. Sorry, so that way. Okay, so she's walking, she's walking, she's walking, she's walking. Okay, so now the backward solve is this is where I wanted to reiterate. So I want to change this animation, right? I don't, you know, maybe I want her to, I don't know, move her head a little bit like crazy or something, right? What you can do is you right click on this, right? Now you're going to be tempted to hit this plus sign, right? The plus sign is just basically assigning a control rig. What you want to do is you want to just in this area right click, bake to control rig, and this is the one that we're on, Jesse test rig fix, right? So we're going to go and we're going to do that, and we're going to hit create. Now, if this rig doesn't work, that means the animation should look funky, right? So what's happening now is you see all these keyframes. It pretty much keyframed every frame on every joint on every bone, and it disabled the animation that we just assigned it, right? That's why it's grayed out. So what we're going to do is now we're going to hit play. She works just fine. So that means the backward solve just worked, right? So now what this allows you to do is, okay, I'm going to now add an additive layer, right? And I am going to, let's see, let's grab her head and let's make it sideways, right? And we'll keyframe that. And let's see what we get. So her head should stay like that. Actually, no, it might pop into place. Oh, yeah, no, it stayed. Yeah, so look. So she's like, what? And that's kind of how you do it.
Well, Jesse, first of all, I want to say you solved an issue that I remember last year when I was doing the control rig episode, was the IKFK switch popping. And we tried in the live session and it just wouldn't work. And that was with, I think, Unreal Engine 5.4 or was it 5.3? And when the modular control rigs and other stuff came out, and things were just broken inside Unreal.
Yeah.
And that totally caught me out of guard. But what you've just shown today, it's like, wait, why did I never think of that logic? So first of all, hey, you are a master rigger, no doubt about that. So
Thanks.
I'm not wearing a hat, otherwise I would take my hat off to you. So that is absolutely brilliant.
Thank you so much. I really do hope that this helps anybody out there, that if you're just jumping in, it's really not that scary. But I really appreciate everyone sticking with me this late. I know this was long, but I think it's worth it. These things, it's going to be so much fun to rig your characters now. Like, you don't really need to be, there's a lot of tools at your disposal from Unreal that's going to help you animate so quickly and get to filmmaking, telling your story. And I think that's what everybody at the end wants to do. So
absolutely. Hey, Jesse, what an incredible deep dive into the world behind the movement or the science of movement. First of all, thank you so much, not just for sharing your tools, your workflows, and your expertise, man, but for showing us the art inside the architecture of a rig, right? Today, you've reminded personally me, as I just mentioned, and all of us, that rigging isn't just technical, it's actually foundational to storytelling, to performance, and to make digital worlds just feel alive, come to life. You've given us clarity, confidence, and inspiration to build rigs that empower creativity, not limit it. And on behalf of everyone here at Inside the Dojo and Virtual Production Dojo and all our participants, you know, and the entire creative community to tune in, we are deeply grateful. And to our audience, thank you for showing up with your curiosity and a desire to learn and to grow and sticking with us. Yes, the session was a long session, but what you've seen is an absolute masterclass. These sessions are only as powerful as the community around them, and your energy fuels this journey. So if today's session sparked something in you, keep going. Explore your other free courses at Virtual Production Dojo. Watch out for Jesse's masterclass course in rigging coming up soon. Join our creative ecosystem and build your practice with purpose. And we are here to support you in your next step towards the cinematic journey. So until next time, keep creating, keep refining, and we'll see you inside the dojo next time.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you, everyone.
Appreciate it. Thank you.